Mac.
Contenders or Pretenders. Thumbnail. Contenders or Pretenders. Thumbnail. I'm just going to tweet that we're live and then we're good to go. Okay, we should be good.
Let me go retweet it.
I'm doing the same thing right now on my PC.
Sounds good.
Just got the noting too, so we are active.
Perfect. Good stuff.
Still funny how we went accidentally live that one time.
Was a good episode.
Accidentally
live accidentally.
Thanks.
Us being accidentally live for like the biggest in-season trade in the history of basketball is just a little crazy, bro. Just a little bit.
Little crazy.
Just a little.
Okay, I'll get it started here.
Let's get it.
Sounds good.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of 3 Point Weekly. We are recording this a night after Damian Lillard went absolutely nuclear against the Houston Rockets, amongst a bunch of other crazy things that happened over the past few days in the NBA, some unfortunate injuries, and we'll also be talking about the contenders or pretenders that we are going to be seeing in the upcoming playoffs. We'll be discussing our thoughts on those teams later, but we're going to start off with that performance from Damian Lillard. I'll get your thoughts first from you, Gabe. I mean, Dame's been playing out of his mind for the last month and a half, but last night was just absolutely ridiculous.
I mean, like, what else even needs to be said? It's just, I think I tweeted it yesterday when he did it. I'm like, hey, the way we got to talk about this man among top scorers, I feel like he don't get enough recognition for that. But yeah, especially over these last 2 months, you know, he even said it himself last night, dealing with some shorthanded lineups, you know, having to come out and play like that. All love from my side, man. Absolutely crazy achievement. I think they said like highest true shooting, least amount of minutes in a 70-point game. Just like the rate at which he was scoring has pretty much never been seen before. And if it has, it was back in Wilt's era. So like definitely the one of the best scoring performances we've ever seen live.
The 82% true shooting was like, when they said that, I'm like, is that true? And I looked at the stats, I'm like, it is. It was crazy, man. When he had 41 in the first half, I didn't think that the game would be competitive long enough for him to get to like upper 60, 70 range. But the Rockets tried to make some adjustments. They tried to double Dame as soon as he touched half court, which kind of worked in the third quarter, but then he went nuclear in the fourth. Dame's just one of them dudes that can get hot. Like, we know this. Like you said, Devin, he's been going off for like the last month or so. I think he's averaging like 39 or something over his last 10 games or so. Like, it's been incredible. We know that Dame is this good. It's good to see him healthy because last season he dealt with a lot of injuries. So I think a lot of people just kind of forgot how good he is, and it's great that he's still playing at this production, even though he's getting a little, older in basketball years. But it was something to watch. It's crazy. We've seen 2 70-point games in one season. Like, that's unprecedented. I didn't have that on my radar coming into the year, but that's just how talented these guys are. Like, Damian Lillard is one of the best scorers, not just of this generation, but I would say all time, just how he can fill up the stat sheet, man. So shout out to him. The Rockets, we're getting a lot of hate though on Twitter, man. Like, people want Stephen Silas gone, which I have a lot of thoughts about that, but we'll talk about Dame right now. He was incredible, but it's kind of sad that he has to go to these levels for this team to maybe be a playing team at best. It's just, that's the one thing that sucks.
Yeah, that's definitely the tough part. They now sit in the 11 seed. They're only a half game out of the play-in, so they're right in range. Of course, we know how tight the Western Conference is. Anyone can make a 4 or 5 game run and jump themselves up a few spots, but Damian Lillard keeps playing the way he has, and they're definitely going to have a shot to do so. You guys touched on it all. Great performance from him. The fact that we've seen 2 70-point games this year is absolutely ridiculous. And it begs the question, I know some people have been discussing it over the last 24 hours, and I'll ask you first, Tyrik. Do you think there's any chance that within like the next 5 to 10 years, someone actually breaks Wilt's record?
5 to 10. I'm going to say no. 100 points is a lot. That is a lot. And Dame just had one of the most efficient 70-point games that you can have. And a lot would have to go right. It would have to be one of those situations like kind of Kobe's 81 where you're losing, at that point, like your team's not very good. You're losing to the opponent, but you're still getting your buckets. You have to shoot a lot of free throws. Might need some overtime. Like, that's going to take a lot for somebody to score 100. So within the next 5-10 years, I would say no. Will it happen eventually? I would say probably, but not anytime soon. We all might be pretty old by the time somebody drops 100 in the game.
What I will say is I do think in the next 5 to 10 years, if things continue like at the rate they're going, because, they could implement a rule change in 2 years that just kind of slows scoring down again. You never know. But if things keep trending in this direction, I do think in the next 5 to 10, you could see Kobe's get broken. Just given the fact of like these 2 performances happening in the same season. And both of them were kind of similar circumstances with like shorthanded teams. I think when Donovan Mitchell had his game, Darius Garland was out. So it's like guys really got to step up because their teammates just aren't in the rotation. And so given that, I think there could be a guy that comes along and, I know Damian Lillard's game didn't go to overtime, but maybe I don't – did Donovan Mitchell's? I can't remember.
Yeah, it did.
I thought it did, but yeah. Even in that case, like say a game goes to double overtime, a guy stays hot, like you might see something like that. We just got the second highest scoring game in the history of basketball like a week ago. So, I mean, things like this really could happen. And given the fact that Kobe did what he did in one of like the lowest scoring eras of basketball, I think today, like just look at it. Now we have 3 players active in the league that have scored at least 70. Like that number 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I think Devin Booker got it in 2017. So 6 years ago, that number was 0. And just to see that, like, surely somebody could probably hit 80 in the next couple of years, man. Because even
that's a big ask. That is a big ask, man.
It's just the fact that, like, go back, take yourself to like 2015 or 2016, and how many guys even had a 60-point game on their resume? Like, it wasn't that many. Like, Kobe had it. LeBron had his one, Melo. But beyond that, there was like 3 guys who even had a 60-point game on their resume for like a good stretch. And now you have 3 guys that are at 70.
Yeah. It's tough, man. It's just gonna take a lot for even 81, man. 81 is kind of crazy too. I don't know who could do it. I mean, there's definitely guys that have that scoring ability, but man, that is a big ask, bro. Like even, I mean, 70 is a big ask, but 81, that's crazy. And then jumping up to 100, that's almost insane to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to take a lot for that to happen. Like you mentioned, Tyrik, there's going to have to be a lot of free throws. And similar to how Dame did it, you're probably going to have to get stupid hot from three, especially if you're talking about touching Kobe's record, if you're talking about touching Wilt. I mean, there's just not enough time to go and get up 35 shots in the paint. I mean, it's just not going to happen if you're going to get to that level of production. So there's a select few guys that are going to be able to do it because you're going to have to be a Dame or a Steph, or if Luka gets really hot from 3-run night, because you're going to need a lot of 3-point shots for that to happen. So it's possible, but it's definitely going to be tough to get that one eclipsed. But full credit to Damian Lillard. Historic performance from him as he continues to be one of the best scorers of this generation. And for someone that we were having in debates with Trae Young during the offseason when we were making our point guard lists, that debate is long gone throughout the course of this season. That is for damn sure.
And people got to stop, like, because this, of course, is the discourse I see when I get on Twitter earlier today. People are like, oh, like, because they were saying, like, Dame has more 60-point games than, like, a decent-sized list of NBA Hall of Famers, like, more than all of them combined, which is it's crazy. Like, Damian Lillard has done that, but people are like, but he doesn't have any rings. He doesn't have any playoff success. And I'm like, it's so frustrating. It's so frustrating because if Dame went ahead and requested out to a team that was already super established, people would be mad as hell. But they clown him for trying to stay in Portland and believing that, you know, he can win there. Like, it's so, like, you can't win either way. It's like, oh, he's great at scoring the basketball, blah, 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 but he doesn't have any rings. Like, people can still be great players without having any championships. There are plenty of Hall of Fame guys that never won a championship, plenty of Hall of Fame guys that never made the finals, and they are still great players. I just hate how NBA fans nowadays weigh rings so heavily. It kind of pisses me off.
Yeah, I mean, like, context is an important thing. And especially when you're talking about a guy who has not left the team he was drafted by. And obviously, I haven't recently historically went through all of the Trailblazers playoff runs with Dame. But even still, there's never been a Portland roster that people have looked at. And it's like, yeah, that's a surefire title contender. That just hasn't existed. They've only got to the conference finals once. They weren't expected to win that series. I mean, like you say, yeah, Dame hasn't got the titles. He hasn't had as much playoff success, but the context in which he hasn't got that success is really important, especially for a guy that stayed with the team that he was drafted by and hasn't surrounded him with that much talent.
And I do think the thing with Damian Lillard is the fact that in the player mobility era, like, he's been on his same team. And in doing that, it's not like it's like, you know, like a Kings with DeMarcus Cousins, where it's like they have this generational player, best in the league at his position, but they're not even in the playoffs. Like, sure, Dame's had he's had some bad playoff series, like against New Orleans in 2018 comes to mind. But he's also had moments like the Rockets series or, you know, like the Oklahoma City series where he elevates his game and creates all-time moments in the postseason. So it's not like he's some guy that just gets to the playoffs and just completely folds every year. Because you see that narrative of plenty of guys like Paul George, DeMar DeRozan come to mind. And it's like, oh, solid regular season players, but then no, like, playoff success. And it's like, Dame has had playoff success. He just hasn't had final success. He's had good moments. He's elevated his game plenty of times. And he's created moments. Like, I think he's a player that, you know, I saw somebody say, like, I hope people don't start talking about him like he is like Adrian Dantley in a couple years. Like, nobody's going to compare him to Adrian Dantley. People are going to remember the things that Damian Lillard did. That shot in Paul George's face, that shot to take out the Rockets in like his third or fourth season of playing basketball, like, that's some crazy stuff, and that's some all-time stuff. And I can speak for myself when I say, yeah, in 20 years, when I remember basketball players I watched and my favorite guys to watch, he's going to be up there with the top of them because he's just such a dynamic, fun scorer to watch and has created a lot of memories for a lot of people.
Definitely. And like Devin said, context is everything. You also got to remember he played in the same era as Steph Curry and the Golden State Warriors dynasty. So nobody in the Western Conference was really getting off during that time, except for maybe the one-off year where the entire Warriors franchise was decimated by injuries and the Lakers won a championship. Other than that, the Warriors have not lost a playoff series in the Western Conference since, 2014? So, it's tough. Like, he's played in the same conference as the Warriors his entire career, and they've just so happened to be one of the most successful franchises, in a 10-year span in NBA history.
Yeah, not to mention the fact that the number 2 team in Houston wasn't too bad themselves either. But yeah, like you say, Dame's done his thing, regular season, postseason. Last night was just a great encapsulation of how good of a career he's had. And even though he's going to turn 33 this summer, at least a top 5 point guard still in the league, and is probably arguably the only reason that Portland have a chance of making the play-in tournament this year. So kudos to Damian Lillard. Great night from him. Great run of performances from him over the last couple of months. Let's move on to some news that broke today. The Lakers have won 3 in a row, and unfortunately now look like they're going to be without LeBron James for the time being. That injury that has been nagging him for the last couple of weeks looks to be a little bit more serious than it might have been initially. Really getting second opinions. Not sure how long he's going to be out for at this point, but for a team that finally was starting to play good basketball, looked like a fun team, was probably the first time in a while where people genuinely were liking this Lakers roster. And now LeBron goes out, and it's not really certain when he'll be back. So I'll get your thoughts first, Gabe. But what do you think of the Lakers moving forward as far as their chances of making even the play-in tournament at this point, with LeBron out for at least probably the next few weeks?
It's tough, man. It's really tough. And the only thing you can say is just this has kind of been the story of most of LeBron's Laker career, like year one gets there with all the young guys, known as an Iron Man throughout the entirety of his career. And then in that 2019 season, he goes out, misses a significant stretch while they're the 4 seed. They missed the postseason. Year 2 on the Lakers, doing real well, but then they got a giant 4 or 5 month break in the middle of the season to really rest up and recover. They went on to win the championship, but then ever since then, it's like this team and LeBron himself have not been able to stay consistent through the injury bug. And it just sucks to see, because I really did like the way this roster looked. I thought they had a really good supporting cast around him, about the best they could do with the pieces they were working with and the assets they had to trade at the trade deadline. And so it's just, at this point, an experiment we probably won't get to see. I'm glad we were just talking about Dame and the Trailblazers, because it's like now that's just even easier for them to make that run to the 10 seed, because to me, this knocks the Lakers out. I can't see it happening. I know AD is there. I know they have the supporting cast now that I like, but at the same time, LeBron has played so well when he's on the court this season that I'm just not sure taking away that production from a team who's still below 500 is going to allow them to go on the run they need to really put themselves in a good position, especially with Portland heating up, especially with the Thunder not doing great recently, but still lurking in the background. The Pelicans still have good players despite the fact that Zion's been out. It's just all these teams have this upside you see, and now you take away what I think most people still probably consider like a top 6, 7, if not higher player in the league. Taking him out of the equation, I just don't think you can get it done.
Yeah, you said it, man. They're pretty much screwed. I can't lie. I mean, I think in his Laker career, he's missed like 98 games or something like that, and they're 26 games under 500 in games that he has not played. And that's really been the story of LeBron's career. If he misses games, the team's not good. Like, it's been there pretty much everywhere except for like Miami when D Wade and Chris Bosh were still playing at pretty high levels. Other than that, LeBron teams, when he's off the court, they're just not good. And even though the Lakers have made moves to get better, we all have seen that, and they have been playing well, it was tailored towards LeBron James. Like, the idea is LeBron's going to be on the court. I can't see this team without him being able to make a real play-in, potentially playoff push, because that's just how congested that Western Conference is. They could potentially be out of the play-in if they played as good as basketball as they possibly could the second half of the season. So without Bron, I don't see it, man. And it's like you already got Anthony Davis, who is an injury risk every time he touches the floor. And D'Angelo Russell's already been banged up. So it's like you got 3 guys, your 3 best offensive players are all guys that have kind of dealt with injuries over the last few years. So it's very tough. we'll see what they do. Hopefully that they can weather the storm and LeBron will be back sooner than expected. But when I got that report that said, it's kind of uncertain when he'll be back, it might be multiple weeks, maybe 3-4 weeks. That's scary because that's pushing towards the end of the season. That's pushing towards April. And the West is so tight that, if you lose 3 games in a row, you're pretty much sitting at like the 12 seed at that point. And teams like you mentioned, Devin, like Portland's, they're starting to really try and get it together, and they're not even as fully healthy as they can be. OKC is a scrappy team. They're right there. Like that bottom of the West is so congested that if you lose a few games, your season might be over.
Yeah, it's definitely tough. And there's no doubt that LeBron out is going to make a team that looked like they at least had a really good chance of making the play-in, now have a really uphill battle. The biggest caveat for me is as long as AD stays healthy, I think they have a chance. I'm by no means guaranteeing they make it, but I think they'll at least have a chance. And part of that is just because I like the roster that they currently have and how they've changed it over the deadline. And part of it is just the fact that I don't trust the teams around them enough right now. The Timberwolves have looked like they're slipping again as of late. The Pelicans, despite Brandon Ingram returning and him playing really good basketball, they've really been struggling to get contributions outside of him. They've now lost 4 in a row after losing to the Magic at home tonight. Trailblazers have been better, but again, that team does seem to be going as far as Dame can take them right now. And OKC, despite having played really good ball over the last couple of months, they're starting to slip a bit with a few losses now as well. Still in the picture, of course, but there's a lot of teams around them that aren't exactly playing their best basketball right now. So I think that's the one thing that can keep them alive. But like you said, Tyrik, if they start to slip, if they lose 3-4 in a row, 1, obviously it's hurting them in the standings. 2, without having LeBron to get you out of that slump, to keep you going, to keep the momentum going, to try and get back in the win column, I think it gets really tough at that point. So there's no doubt they're in a tough spot, and they could get on a slippery slope really quick and end up in the 13 seed before the end of the season. But I think they still have a shot, again, as long as AD is healthy, which is a pretty big hope, but a hope that they need.
I think I was going to say just kind of a caveat with these playoff chances is the fact that if you look at the strength of schedule that's left this year, the Lakers have the 26th strength of schedule. So it's like, of all places to be, at least kind of a lot of the worst has passed, whereas teams above them, like Minnesota, for example, has the 3rd hardest strength of schedule left. So it's like when that's one of the 2 teams or couple teams above you, like that's pretty much best case scenario is the fact that the schedule left for them isn't as bad as it could be.
Yeah, I guess we'll see how good this team actually is in the time that LeBron is off the court. If they can weather the storm and kind of stay around where they are, and LeBron can be back in like 2, maybe 3 weeks most, then I think I'll feel a little better about them. But if they just completely fall off a cliff, then it's like, okay, yeah, they made some good moves, but LeBron is really like the guy that covers up all the holes that this team could potentially have. So hopefully they can weather the storm. Hopefully AD can stay healthy because he's definitely the biggest piece now, like easily. If AD can stay healthy, they could probably weather this storm just a little bit while LeBron's out.
It's definitely going to be the biggest thing that holds them together. We'll see how it plays out over the next couple of weeks, and hopefully for LeBron and the Lakers' sake and us as fans, he's back in the court in the next couple of weeks, and the Lakers get to make a late push. Also, as we were getting ready to record tonight, unfortunately, as the Hornets picked up their 5th win in a row, as they're playing the best ball of the year, LaMelo Ball is now likely out for the season. He picked up another ankle injury. Maybe it helps him get Victor Wembanyama, but that kind of seems secondary at this point for the health of LaMelo and the fact that he is now going to be out for the Hornets for the remainder of the season. But we have some free agency signings and buyout market guys to discuss, given the fact that we have not talked about any buyout signings at all yet. So we'll start in LA. We will not discuss whether we think the Clippers are contenders yet, as that will be remaining for the later part of this podcast. But starting with the Clippers with the addition of Russell Westbrook. He's played a few games there now, starting to fit into his role in the starting lineup there, despite having some changing roles and minutes throughout fourth quarters and overtimes over the last couple games. But I'll get your thoughts from you first, Gabe. What are your initial thoughts on Russell Westbrook in LA and how he's been used so far?
The Clipper fan.
He just had to say it, man. He just had to say it. You cannot resist yourself. But hey, man, listen. As a enjoyer of Clipper basketball, I can tell you, Russell Westbrook's look good, man. I think it's good. He's in a situation where he's wanted, but also a situation where I think he fits a little bit better. I think it's really nice that, for the Clippers' sake, he's probably the best point guard they've had on the team in the Kawhi PG era. Because, I mean, like, Reggie Jackson had a little streak where he was hot, but, like, overall, if you're saying who's a better player between those two, I'm probably going to take Russ in most situations. But just the way he's played the past two games, like, he ain't played bad, man. I know the Clippers haven't won, but it's like he looks good. And honestly, like, I was talking up their trade deadline and the additions he got there, but, like, he might be a better addition than all of them. So it's like I think this team is looking good moving forward, man. They got to get some wins together, kind of get their chemistry before you can really fully judge it, because, you know, I can't judge it fully off two games that are both losses. But give me a couple more weeks, and it's like maybe we'll see some really good stuff out of them. I like the way it is so far.
I like it. They've not had a dynamic point guard, you know, ever since, like, Chris Paul left. Like, they haven't had a dynamic playmaking point guard, especially with Kawhi and PG, which I think has been the biggest want for this team, you know, ever since the bubble. Like, that was kind of the weakness that they had. So I like it a lot. Ty Lue's kind of weird sometimes with his rotations. Like, Russ not playing basically any minutes down the stretch was a little weird. But they did come back, almost had a chance to win that game. So I'm not going to judge it too much. And it's only 2 games in also. They just played overtime the other night. I'm not going to judge it too much. Sometimes you just go with what's rolling. Maybe that's what he did there. But we'll see. Like Gabe said, take maybe a couple of weeks to really digest and see how I really feel about this move and this team moving forward.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they've added a lot of pieces over the last couple of weeks now between the trade deadline and the addition of Russ. So the main thing is he's playing well. He's looked good. He's looked comfortable. Like you said, Tyrik, he's adding a lot of valuable dribble penetration, rim pressure, playmaking that this team just hasn't had. And that's been really valuable for them. He's looked like a good fit already. There's been some moments at times where, specifically in OT against the Kings, where him and Plumlee were out there, and it's a little bit of awkward spacing as far as guys getting open 3-point looks, specifically Russ at times, that just weren't going to get taken. But by and large, Russ has looked great. The fits look pretty good. And the Clippers have definitely benefited from his addition. We'll talk more later about some of those late game rotations, what that closing 5 could look like, and how good that actually could be come postseason time. But by and large, so far, it looks like a very good signing. The other one we will discuss for now, we will mention some other ones briefly later, but we will start with the addition of Patrick Beverley to the Chicago Bulls. They have since won 2 games in a row as well. And for someone who seemed to help the culture of the Minnesota Timberwolves last year and helped them to get to the play-in tournament, he's now in a team who's a half game out of the play-in tournament and desperately need to see the postseason just for a little bit of indication for bringing their guys together. I'll start with you again, Gabe, here on this one. Do you think Patrick Beverley is actually going to be that significant of an addition for the Bulls down the stretch?
Hey, man. I owe the city of Chicago an apology because I said you guys did absolutely nothing during the trade deadline. Things are going bad. Point guard is injured, not coming back. Just things are looking grim. And what did they do to prove me wrong? They brought in a culture changer, man. Listen, this team with these aging players, these mediocre contracts, not a ton of assets to work with, good piece in Patrick Williams. You know what they did? Listen, here's what they did. They took their ceiling from a 10 seed, a 9 seed, losing in the first round of the play-in. You know where they took their ceiling? They might lose in the first round at 5, man, because play-in champion Patrick Beverley, he's he's here, man. And so that's my apology to the Chicago Bulls. I really undervalued what they had cooking up in the front office. But like realistically, no, I don't think it changes it that much. Like it was cool with the Timberwolves because he brought their chemistry together, gave them a little bit of an edge, and they were able to make that run. But that was a little bit of a younger team that was finding their way, kind of getting that core to their first winning in a while. Whereas in this case, like DeMar DeRozan's been to the conference finals, bro. Like he's like a 5-time All-Star. Zach LaVine, he's been in the league for a little bit. Like most of these guys are like, Vooch, he made a couple playoff runs with the Magic. I shouldn't say runs, but they made it a couple times. So it's like these are guys who don't need to really learn. So, I don't think it's going to be the same impact that he had on Minnesota. But, like, is he a solid pickup for them? Yeah, he is. And, if Lonzo Ball's not coming back, glad you got a point guard who's serviceable as a starter in the meantime.
Yeah, they needed some type of guard depth and another defensive guard in the rotation. So it's an okay move, I guess. He's going home. He was talking about he gets to take his kids to school now. Like that's nice. That's very heartwarming. But realistically, nah, I don't see like. I don't see it. Pat Bev's playoff streak might be coming to an end. I don't see the Bulls getting in. But maybe there's the outside chance that he comes in. I mean, they won 2 games straight. He gives them this just energy boost that they need because there are times where they just look very lackluster on the court. So maybe he gives them a little boost, and maybe they make a little run, get out of the play-in, and get swept in the first round by the Bucks or the Celtics.
Yeah, like you alluded to, Gabe, I don't think the impact is going to be as big with the Timberwolves. And like you said, they were a younger team. They were also a team with a lot less defensive identity. And surprisingly, and unlike we expected when this Bulls team was formed, and the Bulls are a very good defensive team, it's 6th in the league currently in defensive rating. So Beverley's going to help that, but he's not like he's coming in and setting a new identity on that side of the floor. Arguably, the biggest win for this move is that Goran Dragic is not getting 20 minutes a night anymore because great career, but he's a little bit better off not getting 20 minutes for you if you want to be a playoff team at this point in time.
He's on that Mount Rushmore of like, why the hell is this guy still getting minutes? Yeah. Him, DeAndre Jordan. There's some other guys too, but those are like 2 of the top names on that list. Like, why the hell are these guys still getting minutes?
Jeff Teague in the finals was very high on that list.
And I don't know what kind of dirt he had on Coach Bud, but man, the fact that brother was getting finals minutes was insane.
That is some ridiculous rotations, man. That is ridiculous.
Just nasty, man. Just nasty. That would be like Udonis Haslem getting actual playoff minutes.
Yeah.
Hey, the way the Heat are this year, shit, he might.
Nah, they got K-Love, man.
They do have Kevin Love now, which does bring us to our next discussion. They brought in Kevin Love. They brought in Zeller. They still didn't get a wing, but I mean, at least they brought in something. But
still no wings, man. It's not Wingstop, but they got some bigs, I guess.
Still got some bigs. At least the Kevin Love edition allows Martin to have his role freed up a little bit in terms of going back to the bench, giving them a little bit more wing depth in that way, and allowing them to have a little bit more flexibility with their rotations. But I'm personally interested to see how they manage Kevin Love minutes in the playoffs anyways, because we know that team loves defense. They're built on defense, and they're still going to have a good defense with Kevin Love on the floor, but there's a reason why he was mainly playing small ball 5 in most of his minutes earlier on this year and lots of his minutes last year, because him defending at the 4, I mean, he's never been a great defender, but him at the 4 these days is definitely a tough cover for him on the defensive end. And he's going to give him a bit of shooting, most likely, and he'll provide some valuable minutes because, I mean, this team needed depth. We've been begging for them to get depth all season since before the season started. But that'll be the most interesting thing for me is how they hide him defensively and how they use him in rotations throughout the playoffs, how much he plays down the stretch in fourth quarters, if at all. That'll be the most interesting thing for me on a team that cares about their defense so much.
I mean, he hasn't played the 4, it seems like, in like 4 or 5 years. It seems like it's been a long time since he's been like a full-time forward. So that is going to be interesting. Matchups might be very, very key. But this is already a Heat team. They love to run zone a lot. So they'll probably run a lot of zone with Kevin Love on the floor when Bam's playing too. So that's going to be interesting just how Spoelstra does manage that. But matchups are going to be key. Like against some teams, like I can see them being able to hide them against Philly. I wish I got to watch the game tonight to see, how maybe they handled that. Because, you can always just throw somebody on PJ Tucker because he just sits in the corner. So that might be a way to like kind of mitigate his defensive woes. But we'll see. Was Cody Zeller on a roster? I didn't know he was still like an NBA player.
He was not employed.
How old do y'all think Cody Zeller is?
He's 29. He's got to be 29. He's one of those players that looks like 45, but he's got to be 29.
He's 30.
Yeah.
I'll take it.
I think he just turned 32. He really looks like he's like 38, 39, like should be retired. Like I didn't know he was still playing basketball.
So it's always the random big men, bro. They just look so old. I think stuff like that is like the main caveat with pickups like these. It's like it looks solid on paper. I do think maybe Cody Zeller can play some spot minutes if you want to give Bam a little bit of a rest, But at the end of the day, if you're trying to win playoff series against good teams, you're still probably going to have to send Bam out there for at least 40 minutes because Cody Zeller ain't getting the job done against the top teams in the East. Same thing with same thing with Kevin Love. Like he can probably provide you something like you guys were alluding to, you got to work him in, hide him on defense. I think he has a little bit more to offer, but at the end of the day, players end up on the buyout market for a reason. It's because they want to find a new team and go to a contender, but like teams don't want to give up anything. Like they have basically zero value. So, they just end up getting bought out of their contract. I mean, that's the nature of it. And so that's a lot of the things with the buyout market like this is that most of the time it might be guys who you're like, oh, that's a name. And I've seen him do some good stuff, but I don't know if it's moving the needle that much. And especially looking at this team, it's like you look tonight, they had 9 guys in the rotation. And it's like, all these guys look like solid players. Like, Oladipo's obviously solid. Martin's obviously solid. Strus and Vince, they gave them solid minutes in a conference finals run last year. But still, it's like no wings.
A lot of those guys have been inconsistent too, man. Like, I was looking at Max Strus's numbers, and his percentages was just way down. I'm like, I didn't know he wasn't shooting like as – I mean, he was shooting I think 45% last year. So obviously a dip's going to come, but it's kind of a Duncan Robinson like progression the last time I checked his stats. And Duncan Robinson fell out the rotation. Gabe Vince has been pretty consistent for them. Same thing with the Martin brother. But that's the main thing, man. Like if Kevin Love can come in and play solid basketball, knock down some shots, that'll be fine. But like you said, Gabe, there's a reason why he was on the buyout market. He hasn't been good. He has not been good this season. Like his 6 Man of the Year campaign last season, it's been a big drop off for him this year. So hopefully he can get back to that. Maybe a new scenery, a new team that maybe believes in him can help. But these moves, not really super needle mover moves that we were kind of hoping for Miami.
Yeah, definitely not the bigger moves we were at least hoping for them around the trade deadline. Hopefully the pieces still fit. We'll discuss more what we expect and hope from them in the playoffs momentarily. Other moves were made over the last couple of weeks around some buyout market guys and some guys being signed back into the league, just like Cody Zeller. The most notable of those was RJ Hampton going to the Pistons. I will take a brief moment to discuss this one and we'll quickly go through the others. But it's another typical Pistons signing, and for a team that continues to either trade for guys or sign for guys on low value and develop them well and flip them for more value or bring them into their rotation as valuable pieces. It just seems like the type of move they make. It seems like it's the type of move that'll have success for them. And given the fact he wasn't seeing much time with Orlando, it's nice to see him in a new opportunity as well. I'll get your thoughts first. Tyrik is the guy who predicted it before it happened on Twitter.
I basically broke the news, but I mean, it was obvious. We kind of knew, okay, yeah, he'll probably be in Detroit, which is just the Pistons type of thing, and they're clearly tanking right now. So why not go get a former first-round pick, a guy that had lottery-type talent, in the year of his draft? Why not go get him, see what he has? They're doing the same thing with James Wiseman right now. He's had some very productive games for them so far. So it's the Detroit way. K's not playing the rest of the season, so it's might as well just bring in another guard, see what he has. Just allow him, Killian Hayes, to get those minutes. I like it, man. Detroit, maybe not the season that we thought they could have taken a decent sized jump, but you can't predict K going down with an injury and things of that nature. So just another year of development for some of their guys. They got rid of Sadiq Bey to free up, just some, money that they won't have to spend on him. And yeah, hopefully they get the top pick that they want and they'll continue to make great moves.
Yeah, man, it's a Pistons special, man. Tyrik was a prophet on it. It's just like these players that everybody sees a lot of potential in, they don't meet it. There's the Pistons right there to pick them up, man. It's just a never-ending cycle. And like, do I expect him to be the next boom player they have? I don't personally, but could he be? Yeah, but at this point, it's like they've done this with so many guys. It seems like that, some of them are bound to miss, but if he ends up hitting, then good on him. It's what they've done. It's what they're probably going to keep doing. So pretty expected stuff.
And if they miss, there's absolutely no downside to it. So no risk move. Bring in a guy who might have some upside. Another good small move by the Pistons. Other deals that occurred over the last week or so, we saw Michael Carter Williams come back into the league with the Orlando Magic on a 2-year deal. Ish Wainwright secured himself a 2-year deal with the Suns as well after bouncing there from the Raptors last year. PJ Dozier is back on an NBA roster again with the Kings. We also saw the 2 guys that were released from the Pacers after the deadline in Goga Bitadze and Terry Taylor get new deals. Terry Taylor is another new addition for the Bulls, and Goga Bitadze has signed with the Magic. We also saw Bryce McGowens with the Hornets get himself a 4-year deal. Jordan Goodwin got a multi-year deal with the Wizards, and Admiral Schofield signed a multi-year deal with the Magic. So a lot of young guys either moving around or securing some new deals and a little bit more financial security over the last 7 to 10 days, which is always great to see. It's a great time of year for those guys. And a lot of these guys either are going to provide some value, like we talked about with RJ Hampton, similarly to a team like the Magic, who just picked up Goga Bitadze after just flicking Mo Bamba is great business. A lot of these guys can still provide some value, and it's nice to see these guys get a little bit more of a payday. But we'll move on to the last big topic we have before we talk about the contenders or pretenders for this year's playoffs. We have to talk about the Atlanta Hawks, who surprisingly took the entire All-Star break to decide that they wanted to can Nate McMillan, despite not then having their next guy lined up immediately anyways. But they've decided on Quinn Snyder. He's going to be the new head coach of the Atlanta Hawks, and it is believed on Tuesday, the 28th, he will already be behind the bench. The second head coach now out with Trae Young in town in Atlanta. Of course, the rumor mill is going to fly with him getting traded and him being the problem. I'm not going to speculate there because I'm not hanging around in Atlanta, but I'll start with you, Tyrik. What are your expectations moving forward for the Hawks with Quinn Snyder in town? What are you concerned about, or what are you looking forward to with him as a head coach?
I do hate that they waited so long to fire Nate McMillan. That just makes me think like they were trying to make sure they at least had a guy with their sights set on. Maybe that's why they took so long. But post All-Star break is just weird timing. But I do like Quinn Snyder being the coach for this team. Somebody that's had real deal playoff experience with the Jazz over pretty much a decade. It seemed like he was there for a long time. He has experience, coaching dynamic guards like Donovan Mitchell. And his defense have usually always been good. Now that is with Rudy Gobert. So, obviously Rudy's not here, but this Hawks team we think has the makings to be a solid defensive team at least. So hopefully Quinn can unlock that. And sometimes just getting a new voice in the locker room really just helps a team get out of that lackluster phase, which I think the Hawks have kind of been middling with the last couple seasons. Like they had to run when Nate did get the job, or at least he was elevated to, interim head coach, and they made that run. Don't think that they'll do that this season, but I think this is more of a long-term move because I don't think they were ever really bought into Nate McMillan. They kind of waited a very long time to give him that head coaching tag. But Quinn's going to be their guy. He's somebody, like I said, with a lot of experience. And this is definitely a long-term move. Hopefully this could just help flip this franchise from being a team that has to take half a season to wake up to a team that out of the gates is going to be one of the topper teams in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, it's a weird cycle for this team, man. It's like this fire the coach mid-season, and last time they did it led to some good things. Will that happen again? Only time will tell. What I will say is, I mean, Quinn Snyder, proven regular season coach. I can't tell you that Clint Capella is Rudy Gobert, but I can tell you maybe they can run some similar schemes because, he coached. Trae Young is a worse defender than Donovan Mitchell, but it wasn't like Donovan Mitchell was like a good defender. And, he made that work, did some good things with some similar type structures, just maybe a little bit more on the extremes with Gobert as a good defender and now having Trae as kind of a bad defender. So a little bit worse of a situation. But there's some pieces, and I think he's a guy who, coming into a situation where they already have a winning record, kind of around 500, I think he can take them far enough instantaneously to where they can secure themselves a top 8 spot. I'm not going to say they're breaking like above the play-in range, but I think they'll secure themselves one of the 8 spots as we get to the actual playoffs. Will they go much further than that? I just don't think they have the roster for it personally. I just think there's at least 4 other teams that would knock them out in the first round regardless. But the Nate McMillan thing wasn't working to where they wanted it to be. So bring in a guy who's proven and I guess see how it rolls, man.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a good fit. Like you say, Gabe, he has that experience in Utah with a young dynamic guard, with a team that plays very well defensively. And Clint can get that job done as a rim protector if he wants to run a similar scheme. And Onyeka can get a similar job done. So they got the pieces there, like we've talked about, to be a solid defensive team. They don't need to be a top 5 defensive team in the league because their offense is good enough. And that's been picking up a bit as of late. They're no longer like a bottom half offensive rating team like they were at one point this year, which was arguably their biggest problem. But the defense should be able to be better than it has been. And I think this hiring helps with this. I think his experience and his credentials that he's acquired over his very good coaching career so far will help in his locker room presence as well and being able to lead this team to some level of success. And they need that type of guy in there right now. As much as internally things might be fine, the media is trying to make it so that things are not going to be fine internally. So they need a good voice in there. They're going to need someone who can lead them well. And I think Quinn Snyder's a good job for that. I think it's a good hire. And like you said, Gabe, we're only going to see so many of those effects this season, but you're going to pretty much a 20-game head start for him for next year to then get a full offseason, a full training camp with these guys, and hopefully be ready to hit the ground running next year at the start of the season. And like you said, Tyrik, just not midway through the season like they have in previous years. But overall, good signing for them, or good addition. But
definitely, yeah,
it is what it is this year.
Yeah, like Chris Finch kind of got a little bit of a head start too, and that first year was a little obviously it's kind of like getting your feet wet and things like that. And then I think the next season is when they made the playoffs, and the culture kind of started to shift a little bit in Minnesota. So hopefully something similar can happen here, because this Hawks team is too talented to not be at least a consistently good team. They shouldn't have to be fighting with 500 all season long until, oh shoot, we got to start winning games, otherwise we're not going to make the playoffs. And yeah, they're too good. Trae Young's too good. DeJounte's too good. Atlanta's a great city, a good basketball city. They've always had really good teams. So hopefully they can just figure it out. And Quinn Snyder is one of those guys, like Gabe said, he's going to win you regular season games. He's that good of a coach, at least in the regular season.
Yeah, I do think as far as guys to hire mid-season as your coach, if you're not just going to go with your assistant as an interim for the rest of the season, he's probably one of the best options, just given the fact that he has that high floor. Because, you think about it and it's yeah, you could get real experimental and try something new, and maybe it's a bust and maybe it's the best signing you've ever had. But on the other hand, when you already got a guy like Trae, you just brought in DeJounte, you have a lot of guys who are probably going to want to try and win some games. I do think it's probably in their best interest, especially going back to that media narrative you were kind of alluding to. I do think it was in their best interest to get a guy with a high floor that could at least keep them solid and keep them where they are now. So things are definitely not going to go down for them if I had to make a prediction and put money on it. It's just a matter of how much things actually go up. Because looking at this Eastern Conference, maybe they could go on a run and pass Miami. Brooklyn's probably going to be on a big downturn. But like the Knicks have been super hot, and there's not that many games left, and then I don't think they're cracking the top 4 at all. So it's like at max they might move up a spot or 2.
Yeah, which is fine because, like you said, that just is how tough the East has been this season, and that's asking Quinn a lot to, hey, you haven't coached all year, but come fix our team real quick. Let's try and push for a 4th seed. I don't think that's what they're expecting. Probably just make sure we get in the dance, have a successful series, maybe push the team to 7 if we're lucky, or maybe win a series if we're really lucky, and then make the moves necessary in the offseason to get your team set to really go, at least maybe not all in, but kind of all in, because you made a lot of trades, gave up a lot of draft capital for DeJounte Murray to try and build this team towards being, one of the more competitive teams in the Eastern Conference. So I think that this is that long-term move, which I kind of like it from that mindset. I'm not a fan of hiring a coach mid-season. I really kind of hate that. Like, I was pissed when the Timberwolves did that with Chris Finch, but I understand it in this sense because this is a very long-term move for a team that's kind of set up to try and win now.
Definitely. The fact that it's a long-term move definitely makes it a much better decision as opposed to just plugging those holes for the remainder of the season. We will move on now to our big discussion. Contenders or pretenders for this upcoming postseason. The trade deadline has passed. Most of the buyout market signings are done. The rosters are pretty much locked at this point, as much as they will really matter. I think the only notable dominoes that are coming to mind is if Carmelo signs anywhere, Nerlens Noel might sign somewhere, but they're not drastically shifting anything at this point. So we will start in the Eastern Conference. Before we have any in-depth discussions, I'm going to read off the 7 teams that I thought someone could somewhat make an argument for, or at least are still in a top 6 seed. Just tell me if they are a contender or a pretender. We'll go through all 7, and then we will discuss later from there. So we'll go through the Eastern Conference here. We will start with the Bucks.
Contender. We don't need a discussion, man. We don't need a discussion. And honestly, you can skip to 3 because I know the next team you're probably going to say is the Boston Celtics.
Boston Celtics.
Yeah.
I'm not the Celtics fan in the room, but they got
the only way either one of these teams would not reach the conference finals is if a big injury happened. Like, that's the only way that's happening. These are might be the 2 most solid contenders in the league, if you ask me.
Definitely. Okay, moving down the conference, 76ers.
I was talking to my dad about this, man. Shout out to Pops. Contenders. They are. They're contenders. And here's why. They're definitely a step below the Celtics and the Bucks, right? But like I just mentioned, all it takes for a team like the 76ers is like just a little bit of luck, man. Like, you run into a favorable second round matchup, and maybe you get to the conference finals and, Jaylen Brown's out for the series, or Drew Holiday or Chris Middleton's out for a series. Like, you just need a little bit of luck to get to the finals for a team like Philly, man. So I'm gonna say they are contenders.
Yeah, man. I will have to agree here because I think that this team is at a point right now where almost all parties involved, they have to be a contender. Like, a lot of teams that are usually pretenders are like teams that have, some regular season success, but it's like, oh, maybe next year, the year after. This team, like Joel Embiid, he's got to be hearing some of that noise about he's however many years in and hasn't made the conference finals. He wants to achieve that. This is a guy who he was 1 game away from making the conference finals, and he was crying when he didn't go. Like, he wants to be there. He wants to get to the next level. James Harden, he's had these narratives ever since he left Houston. Everything that went down in Brooklyn, he asked out. Now time's up. He's going to need to see some winning stretches, a good playoff run here. And then, guys like PJ Tucker, they're not going to be around forever. Tobias Harris, I feel like, is always on the hot seat every time he plays bad in any playoff scenario. So it's like there's a lot of guys here. And then the biggest one of all I haven't even mentioned yet, Doc Rivers is probably going to have to take this team at least to 6 or 7 in the second round, or he might be out of town.
That. Like, they got to make the conference finals, bro. They have to.
Because they have a player that through certain stretches every year, we say this guy might be the best basketball player on earth. So if you got all that, like, this team has to be a contender And I think they'll show that. I think they'll show that urgency that they need to. And if they don't, this team is probably going to look a lot different next season.
Definitely. But like we said, they got arguably the two best contenders in the league above them. So it's going to be an uphill battle. It's going to be a very tough uphill battle.
What do you have them as, Dev?
I have them as contenders. Contenders. Very much. I have them more labeled as a dark horse behind the Bucks and the Celtics, but they're definitely contenders. There's definitely a path for them to reach the finals. Do either of you guys have any of the Cavs, Knicks, Nets, or Heat as contenders?
I have the Cavs as. I feel like pretenders is kind of harsh because I don't expect them to be contenders at this point. They're like in the happy to be there club.
Yeah,
they are happy to be there. Miami pretenders because that's a team that is all in to try and win a championship, and they were a shot away last season, and they didn't do much to put themselves into a position to get back to that point and surpass that point this season. But they still in their mind will think that they're contenders. I don't. They are contenders. And Knicks, happy to be there. Great season for them.
Yeah, it does make it tough that it's not like a tiered type thing and it's just like a straight yes or no. But yeah, this Knicks team looking real good. I played some of the best ball in the league. Not really talked about too much, but at the end of the day, I'm taking the Bucks in 5 in the second round if they get that far. I'm taking the Celtics in 4 or 5. Like, I don't really think they're getting much off any of those top teams. Cleveland, on the other hand, if I had to go one way or the other, I think I'm going to say fringe contender. If I could have like a contender tier, I'd put them at like the very bottom just because Donovan Mitchell's a different man in the playoffs, man. He is a different man. He elevates his game so much. And then you got a great playmaker next to him, great young point guard. And then you got some defenders on the team, man. So it's like, good team ball scheme. It's like there's a lot to like here, and there's a lot to like about Cleveland. Now, would I pick them as the favorites against the top two? No, I wouldn't. But I do think there's a lot of years that this Cavs team could be a contender. And even if this team was in the West this year and you took them directly over, I might be a little quicker to say they're a contender. Those top two are just so good. So that's why I say more fringe contender. It's just the fact that those top two teams are so good that it makes it hard to view anybody else that way.
Yeah, the Celtics and the Bucks being as good as they are definitely hurts. The biggest thing for me, I mean, we know I had the Cavs as my predicted 1 seed heading into the year. I've been up and down on them all year as to whether they're going to be contenders or not. As of today, I just can't. I can't put them in that category. They're just not quite as good. And part of it's their youth and the experience. But the biggest thing for me is I'm really worried about their lack of shooting come playoff time. And I've hemmed and hawed over it throughout the course of the season where I wasn't worried about it, and I was worried about it, and I wasn't worried about it. They just don't have guys that they can trust to make shots, or more importantly, that the defense has the respect. Because even though Cedi Osman is there and can hit some shots, it's not at enough of a rate that teams are going to be that concerned in a playoff series unless he really gets going in a game, and that's then a game that you have to win. Cedi Osman's been shooting it better as of late too, but teams are still leaving him open because he's just not good enough. And that's just the nature of this Cavaliers team right now, is that they just lack a little bit of shooting. I'm really concerned of how well and how much teams are going to be able to key in on Garland and Donovan Mitchell come playoff time because of it. Their defense is great, no doubt about it, one of the best defenses in the league, but I'm a little bit worried still about that lack of secondary shooting and spacing. They improved that in the offseason. They're looking great. As you said, Tyrik, they're happy to be here. They're in a great spot. This is a team that went from a team that many people predicted to be like a 12 or a 13 seed last year to now being a top 4 seed in the East. So they're doing everything right, from the front office, from development to on-court production and performances. But I can't quite put them there yet.
Yeah, when I hear the word contender, like in my eyes, that is like a team that I would not be surprised if they made it to the finals. And I would be very surprised if the Cavs made it to the NBA Finals. Like I would bet a lot of money that they would not make the finals. Like that's how kind of confident I am. But they're probably, you know, a couple like the Donovan Mitchell trade wasn't like we're trying to make a run right now. It's more of like we're trying to make a run, you know, towards the end of his contract, you know, when Garland has more experience, Mobley has more experience. Same thing with Jared Allen. Like when those guys are more seasoned, that'd be a big ask for them to make a deep playoff run. Really, all of these guys basically first time being in the playoffs other than Donovan Mitchell, Ricky Rubio. Like that's really it. Kevin Love was their most seasoned guy and he's gone. So team lacks a lot of playoff experience. JB's never been a head coach in the playoffs. I don't think so. So, you know, that would be a big ask for them to make the finals. That's why I can't label them as contenders.
My only thing, I just like thinking about it with them. It's like, yeah, it's hard to see them beating those top two, but I just said Philly's a contender, and I just think about it, and I'm like, Cleveland versus Philly in a 7-game series. I genuinely don't know who I would pick.
I think I'm picking Philly, bro.
Yeah, me too. I just saw Embiid put Jared Allen in hell in the last week when they played. So I've seen what they're gonna do, and I love that Cleveland roster, but I can't put them there yet. I think they'll give them a go. I don't think it'll be an easy series.
It'll be a good series for sure, but yeah, that's why those teams are tiers below the Celtics and the Bucks. Like that's why. But I have more faith in Philly than I do Cleveland for sure. Which is kind of crazy to say because Philly doesn't give anybody any reason to have confidence in them come playoff time. But I don't know. I want to believe that this season is a little different for them.
You and me both. The Western Conference, I think, is going to be a lot more interesting discussion. It's been this way all year. It's been a very confusing Western Conference. So we're just going to start right from the top. Are the Denver Nuggets contenders?
No.
Yes, they are. A lot of it's because of the state of the West, but they have been pretty dominant. This is the best team that Jokic has had since he's really ascended into that superstardom. You know, he's always was like an all-star, but really ascended into being a superstar, clear-cut top 5 player in the league, right? This is their best roster that they've had. Still not a big believer in the roster, even though that this is the best one, but Jokic is still an incredible playoff performer, which he kind of doesn't get credit for. And if other guys can elevate, I think that makes him a contender. And I think he won't need much from other guys. Like Michael Porter Jr. just kind of has to be who he is. Jamal Murray can, you know, just elevate his game a little bit. This is a contending team, and especially in the state of the Western Conference right now. They're probably the team I have the most confidence in currently because some other teams still have to gel, which we'll talk about soon.
Gabe?
I am so incredibly on the fence.
Isn't that crazy that you're having issues saying that the 1 seed, one of the top 3 teams in basketball, is a contender or not?
I mean, it's been
parity in the NBA.
I mean, it's been like that for years, though. I feel like I mean, the Jazz were a 1 seed like 2 years ago, and I mean, they I don't think most people had them as a contender.
Can't lie. I thought the Jazz. I thought they had a real chance that year, man. I'm not gonna lie. There are videos on my channel talking about this might be the year for the Jazz.
And then like the Isaiah Thomas Celtics in 2017. I'm sorry, Tyrik, but
we was just happy to be there, man.
That team was in happy to be there tier.
But everybody knew it was conference. LeBron.
It was LeBron's conference. So like, you know, there's been times, even the Raptors in 2018. I'll do it to myself too. Like that team was not a contender. However, I do think the Denver Nuggets this year are a contender, and I've just decided to go with that because, you know, I know people will say, "Oh, like, you know, last time Jokic had a pretty healthy roster, like." He got exposed by Chris Paul, man. Like he got totally waxed. And I just can't say that this is the same Jokic. Improved on defense. I think better at scoring, better at being aggressive. I think a lot of the weaknesses in his game from back when they got waxed by the Suns 2 years ago, I think there's just been some evolution there. You know, Michael Porter Jr.'s had more time in the league. Jamal Murray's back from his injury, so hopefully he can show at least some flashes of what he did that bubble season. And, just different guys around the roster. They got some solid wings, some solid backup guards, and guys like Reggie Jackson. Brought in Thomas Bryant to play some spot minutes, and he was pretty good for the Lakers this year. It's like pretty well-rounded roster with the guy that people are saying is about to win his third straight MVP. And I think at that case, any guy who's going to be on that level, you just have to give him the respect to say, hey, he's got a squad around him. Theoretically, he should be able to take them that far, and thus I'm going to put the confidence in him to do so.
I guess in that case, I'm disrespecting him because I do not have the Denver Nuggets as contenders.
Wow.
Ooh, spicy take, I wanted to do it, but I couldn't deny it, man.
I'm interested to see how many teams you have as contenders then, because my list is very short in the West. It is very short.
I don't have a lengthy list. That's for sure. Denver was probably my toughest omission from being contenders in the West. And obviously we know how great their offense is. We know how good Jokic is. And like you said, Tyrik, this is probably the best team Jokic has had around him, the best defense he's had around him. I still don't trust the defense enough come playoff time. I just don't. And it's a lot better. But I don't think it's going to be enough in the playoffs, specifically in their paint presence. And I know Jokic is a better defender, and I know Jokic is so good. But when your next guy next to you for paint presence come playoff time is Aaron Gordon, it's tough. It's really tough unless you are an elite defensive team on the perimeter. And Denver just aren't. But they're a lot better. And Bruce Brown's a good defender, and KCP's a good defender. But they're just not there at that level. And as much as I love their offense, that defense really worries me. And even though I have enough questions about some of the other teams in the West, I believe in enough other teams in the West that the defense is just going to be a little bit too much for Denver to overcome come playoff time. Great team. They're not going to be easy for anyone to beat, but I don't think they're going to be contenders this year.
So would you be surprised if they made it to the NBA Finals?
I would. I would be surprised.
Okay. Interesting.
Low key, I don't know. I feel like I would be surprised if they made it to the NBA Finals, which is weird. But because I called them a contender, but I also just called Cleveland a fringe contender. And it's so weird to say because Jokic is way better than anybody on Cleveland. But like Denver is also would probably be at like the bottom of my contender tier. If this was a tier list of contention, they're probably like a B level contender. And like C is like happy to be here tier, with DNF being like not a chance.
That's why I said I think the Celtics and Bucks are kind of levels ahead of everybody in the league right now.
I don't say everybody.
Right now, yeah, I do.
Who's on that level, Gabe? Do share.
Well, we're not there yet.
We're not there yet.
We are to another contender, baby. Ja Morant and the Grizzlies are about to gritty all the way to the NBA Finals, man. And let me tell you why. This team last year had most of this roster intact. They had most of these guys already on the roster. What'd they do? They had a great series with the eventual champs. A lot of those games came right down to the wire, lost in 6, I believe. Really solid effort for a young team that hadn't really been there before. Now they come back. They have been there before. They'll have home court advantage against any team in the playoffs that isn't Denver, who half of the people I'm talking to right now don't think is a contender. So in that case, they're looking pretty good. Past that, Jaren Jackson Jr. is playing the best defense in the league right now, man. And it's like, you might say, oh, they don't have some true, like, great, like, pure 5 type, like, great defensive stopper. I mean, Steven Adams is cool, but not, like, top of the top tier. It's the West, man. Like, Jokic is great, but if Jokic and the Nuggets aren't the team they end up facing in the conference finals, I'm not really scared of any other big man in this conference if I'm them. Like, Sabonis is good, but am I sure Sacramento's going to get that far? I'm not sure. And even so, I think the Grizzlies have enough else that they would still beat them. And so with this Grizzlies team, like, good schemes, good coaching, good star player, great depth. I think they have a lot of lineup flexibility because a lot of these guys I could see getting playoff minutes. I think they're one of those teams that, like, they could go 9 or 10 deep in a playoff game, or they could go 8 deep, but it could be different guys depending on the matchup. I just think there's so much there that works for them. They've maintained a lot of that depth they had last year, and the experience is only going to help them out. And a West that now, just after this trade deadline, some of the other teams down here have some real fresh faces. So this team, to me, is just more of the model of consistency. Had some bad stretches throughout this season, but even beyond that, they're still the second seed. So overall, I think kind of the most consistent contender to me, because I think they're the team that would have the least chance to fall off. I could see a lot worse things happening to other teams on this list.
I'm going to take a page out of Dev's book. I'm going to label them dark horse, right? I really struggle. Like, I want to say pretender so bad, but I'm going to say dark horse. My issue with the Grizzlies, and it's really just with young teams in general, is when they get to the playoffs, they just have those sporadic moments, man. And they had a lot of those sporadic moments last season where they would find themselves down 20 points, then they would come back, then they would be right back down 20 points. Or the Warriors would just, open the floodgates and just completely destroy them. That's just the kind of things that I worry about with a team that is so young and all their top talent are all young guys. That worries me. It's good that they had that experience last season. But I have a little more faith in them this year because they had that experience. Jaren Jackson's playing defense at an amazing level, like one of the best levels that we've seen in recent memories. John Morant always ascends his game in the postseason. Desmond Bane has taken another step forward. This team has what it takes, man. They do. I wouldn't be surprised if they made it to the finals, but they're definitely not one of those top teams in my mind. They're kind of in like that Philadelphia territory. Like some things would have to go right for them to make it to the finals, but they're definitely, I think, steps ahead of last season when they won 55 games where we knew that they were a good team, but how would it translate to the playoffs? I think they're a better team this year, even if they may not win as many games, but they're kind of set for that postseason run.
Yeah, I'm in a similar spot with the Grizzlies. I do have them as contenders, but pretty much only for the reason because I think they can win the conference, but there is no way in that. Like, there's just no way that they're beating the Celtics or the Bucks. There's no shot. So they're contenders because they can get to the finals, and I can't call them not contenders because I think they'll lose in the finals, but they can get there. So I'll call them dark horse contenders, but I don't think there's any shot they beat the Bucks or the Celtics if they get there. But I think due to the lack of a top-tier talent in the West, they have enough to challenge to get to that point. We know their defense is great. We know Jaren's doing his thing. Next to Steven Adams, they're going to be a great defensive duo again come playoff time. Biggest problem for me is their lack of shooting and their late-game offense. And those are two critical things for your offense come playoff time. And no disrespect to John Desmond Bane, but when you're talking about a NBA title contender, a team that's going to win a title, just solid, but his outside shot isn't great. And Desmond Bane's solid, and he's improved a lot as a shot creator. But I don't know if I have enough faith in Desmond Bane yet that I'm saying in Game 5 of the NBA Finals against the Bucks, he's going to start creating 2, 3, 4 shots in a row to make big buckets for you late in the fourth. I don't know if they're there yet. So they're contenders for me on the basis that I think they can get out of the conference, but they're very much dark horse contenders in the fact I would be very, very surprised if they end up winning the title, which seems very backwards, but I don't know how I can't call them contenders and think they can make the finals.
Yeah. It's like a lot of the teams that we are talking about as contenders, like they all at least have, most of them have two guys that down the stretch you kind of trust. Like at least we've seen them prove it in playoff situations. The Bucks is like, the Grizzlies is like, we know Jaw's great, we know Bane is great too, but have they proven it to us enough times in the playoffs yet? Maybe this is the year that they break out and do it. Like it's definitely possible. We see Ja really take off down the stretch in playoff games, but we'd like to see it a little in the regular season too. Just so we can kind of get an idea of, okay, these guys can do it down the stretch.
I can definitely see the argument against them. This Western Conference, man, I think it's just the safe pick to me. I don't know. Betting on a team to go to the finals that's like not even going to get home court advantage in the first round, like that just don't feel right to me. I'm like, who's the team that's been consistent, has most of their guys like in? I like them a lot more just because I feel like every team does have some significant downside to them, but their upside to me just seems really high. That's
they're in a better spot than last year because they were so good last season. But I think we all kind of knew like, nah, this is either the Suns conference or the Warriors conference. Like we kind of all had that idea pretty much from like December on, even as good as Memphis was. So they're in a better position. I guess it's just like prove it to us, like make us not think that we're crazy for calling y'all contenders.
Honestly, they're kind of like last year's Grizzlies or sort of this season's Cavs, I feel like, because that's the same thing you just said. It's like they got some talent. They've been so good, but I think everybody knows it's the Bucks or the Celtics conference. So they are going to have to go out and prove it for them to really be on that level. Exactly. So just seeing some parallels there, opposite sides of the bracket.
Definitely, which, hey, if you're a Cavaliers fan, this means you're doing pretty well this year and you're definitely on the right track. Moving on to the Sacramento Kings. We'll start with the member of the pod that did not have them in the play-in in the beginning of the season. That would be Tyrik. What do you expect from the Kings this postseason?
Hey, but this is an avid Sacramento King fan. I love the Kings, man. They are definitely happy to be here. They're not contenders. Nah, they're not. That defense come playoff time, it's a little too bad. The offense is fun. I love it. Hell, if the Kings got swept in the first round, I would enjoy it still. Like, I just like this Kings team that much. But I think they'll be competitive in, like, the first round. They might be able to win a series even. Like, I would not be surprised if they won a series. But, nah, they're not contenders, bro. Nah. The defense is just too weak. And in the playoffs, Sabonis will probably get picked on a little more than teams are willing to do so in the regular season. And they will exploit them deficiencies. And then it's like, guys are going to have to, consistently hit shots because teams are going to load up on De'Aaron Fox down the stretch. Herter got to be ready. Barnes has to be ready. Malik Monk, those guys got to be ready. Nah, they're a little too young to be contenders, man, but still phenomenal season for them.
Hey, man, light the beam because the streak of no playoffs for the Kings is going to be over. However, once they get there, I will have to say that this team is a pretender. I do not think that I just don't think they have the ability to take it to that next level to just actually make a deep push in the West. Kind of same thing you said. Yeah, they could win a series, but it's like right now their first round matchup is against Dallas, and it's like Luka and Kyrie or Fox and Sabonis, and it's like I've seen Luka give some people the business by himself. So Kings probably have the better supporting cast. I'm not too high on the rest of Dallas's roster, but Luka, a bad man. And I don't know if I want to bet against a first-time playoff team against Luka Doncic. So it's from that perspective, will they win a series? I'm not sure. And the fact that I'm saying that about a first-round matchup, got to call them a pretender.
I hope they win a series. Because they're the type of team, if they won a series, their confidence will probably be so high. They might give whoever a big run for their money in that second round.
Definitely. And even though if the Kings did win a round, even still in that situation, whoever they're playing is going to have so much pressure on them because it's still the Sacramento Kings. And regardless of what they've done this year, the history of that organization is still going to ride with them. People still don't believe in them in the postseason. And we're all sitting here saying that they're not going to be contenders. So that's not an outlandish media take, but point of the matter is like you guys said, depending on the matchup, yeah, they probably could win a playoff series. And for an entertainment standpoint, if we see them play the Mavericks, sign me up because I love some great defensive playoff series, but man, there ain't no defense being played in that series, and I am all for it. So series like that, sign me up. That would be a great watch.
Yeah, Sacramento just
chasing De'Aaron for his life the whole series.
Sacramento had the second highest scoring game of all time, just like a week ago. So
yeah, I'm here for it, man. Shout out to the Kings, but nah, they ain't contenders, man. Maybe they had some better wing defense and rim protection, maybe. They have really neither. Harrison Barnes is your best wing defender.
Yeah, but definitely very happy to be here. Great season for them so far. Moving on to the team that I'm guessing will be the least controversial in the Western Conference, the team that has recently acquired Kevin Durant, that being the Phoenix Suns. They're contenders for me. I'll let you guys say what you need to say, but Kevin Durant and Devin Booker are on the same team, and they also have Chris Paul, DeAndre Ayton, and a really good defense. So they are contenders.
When I was talking about gelling period, I kind of wasn't referring to them. I think Kevin Durant is a hooper. He's an amazing basketball player. He's going to fit right into this team, and they're probably the team I have the most confidence in the West.
So they're a contender. I labeled them as the favorite when the trade was made. However, they are the favorite on paper. So very much a contender. But like when you have Kevin Durant on your roster, I'm just always going to be afraid of some injury stuff, man. I'm always going to be afraid that and it's like, you know, will he be playing come the second round of the playoffs? I'm not sure. And that's pretty much the main reason why I think the Grizzlies are on their level. And that's why I kept alluding to consistency with them is like, I'm pretty dang sure that the Grizzlies are going to have their top 3 guys. If that ended up being right now, that would be the conference finals if they matched up. They're on opposite sides of the bracket. So in that scenario, I know the Grizzlies are bringing their top guys. I don't know if the Suns are. Chris Paul also flamed out real bad in the playoffs last year. Who knows what he looks like in the postseason this year? We're hoping we see kind of more of the first round Chris Paul and not the second round Chris Paul, because in that first round he was hooping. So it's like that's kind of that was my big thing. It's like I don't know what the consistency is going to be, but if they play to their upside, this is the one team that I think at their best could beat the Celtics or the Bucks. And that's why earlier you said like that top 2 is on their own tier. I do think the Suns are on this tier on paper.
Yeah, like you say, the biggest thing is just assuming KD's healthy, but even though obviously KD has had his injury concerns over the last few years, anyone could have a freak injury throughout the next month before the postseason. I just got to assume for the sake of argument that KD is going to be healthy because it's going to be a new injury if he isn't healthy. So for the time being, KD's there. He's going to be healthy. That's all I can go off of. And like you said, if that's the case, they're probably the only team right now that I feel have a chance against Milwaukee or Boston. I don't think anyone else has the top end talent to do it. And even like you mentioned with Chris Paul and some of the concerns with how he played in the playoffs last year, the nice thing is he can genuinely be a 4th option for this team in the playoffs. He can just sit back, play some defense, play make, do what Chris Paul does. If he scores like 12 points a game, they're probably fine. They're probably fine. Get Booker his looks, get Durant his looks, make sure DA gets involved and you feed him early and get him engaged. And that's honestly the most important job for Chris Paul offensively, is just to get DA involved. They can do that. Yeah. Chris Paul is fine. He can sit back and score 10, 12 a night, hit a couple of middies in the 4th, and he'll be fine.
Yeah, he went from having to really close playoff games last season when Book was out to now, like you said, like he's the 4th guy. Like me and my dad, we call it point guard heaven. That's what Chris Paul is in right now. Like you have 2 of the best wing scorers in basketball, 2 of the best closers in basketball. If DA is locked in, he's one of the best post presences in basketball. Like you don't got no excuses, man. Like you got guys, as long as they're healthy, this is the only team out west that probably has a real chance of winning it all. You know, I think we're kind of on agreement there because everybody else is like things kind of have to go right for them. Matchups have to go right, maybe some injury luck, but their team, if they're healthy, that should be the team in the West.
Definitely the team to beat with the addition of Kevin Durant. We will move on to Gabe's team that he supports in the Western Conference, as I will.
Y'all gotta keep bringing this up.
Hey, I didn't call you.
You said
fan.
yourself.
I said you're.
You said yourself.
You said you were an LA Clippers supporter.
Didn't y'all know that I'm a closeted Curry fan? You gotta get straight, man.
We'll get to Curry in there, man.
We'll get to that. But starting with the Clippers, are the LA Clippers contenders?
No,
man. Y'all gotta put me on the hot seat, man.
No, hey, they're not, man. They're not.
Listen. The Clippers are contenders.
Okay.
The Clippers are contenders.
Sell me.
Please.
This team, Kawhi Leonard, if he is locked in, and recently he has been, can play some really good basketball. He's shown some high-level stuff recently, and if he's there in the playoffs, the last time Kawhi Leonard played in the playoffs, he got injured in like the second to last game before they got there. But they were on good track to go to the conference finals. This roster, probably better than that roster. Got a lot of good depth pieces. Just brought in Russ, who's the best point guard they've had in this era of Clipper basketball. Marcus Morris has been playing not good recently. So you're probably hoping he can get on the uptick and get back to his medium in the next like month and a half or so, which I think he can. Brought in some good pieces around just to kind of round out the edges, like a Plumlee, like a Eric Gordon, guys like that. You still got Norman Powell. Bones Highland can be a great like microwave scorer in moments in the playoffs if you need him. Like they just got so many guys. I mean, I just listed off that many guys. And when they made the conference finals, who put them over the top? Terrence Mann. Like they just got so many dudes on this roster that if Kawhi plays like we know Kawhi can, and Paul George, basically, they just need their top guys to do a repeat of what they did 2 years ago, last time they were healthy. And I don't see why they can't take down most of the teams in this conference, man. Like, matchups would have them against the Suns in the first round right now, which is a tough out. But, like, them against the Kings, I'll take them. Them against the Nuggets, I'll probably take them. Them against any seed below them, I'll probably take them. So it's like, besides the Suns and the Grizzlies, I think they look good, man. I think they're primed for success. I think they're primed for the playoffs. And even with guys in and out the whole season, they're still a top 5 seed for a reason. They just got so many players.
The benefit of being in a wacky Western Conference for sure. I don't know, man. I just can't buy into this team, bro. It's been just that gut feeling all year about them. Like even when Kawhi and Paul George have been on the court, I just can't buy into this team. I don't trust them like as far as spacing in the playoffs, even though they added guys like Eric Gordon and things of that nature. I still think in the playoffs they might struggle to really consistently hit jump shots. Like you said, Marcus Morris has not been playing well. Robert Covington doesn't shoot the ball well anymore. Like they just have guys that just don't really knock down shots. They got guys that can hit threes, but not guys that really space the floor. They have bigs that have repeatedly been exposed. Like Zubac kind of has been exposed in the playoffs. Like you can't run against some teams that like to go small and play a lot of wings. Like him against the Suns might get torn up, man, because it's happened before. I've seen it before. Him against the Warriors would be an issue. Like there's just him against the Grizzlies might be an issue. Like they just got so many questions for me. Like everything that Gabe just said, it sounded like a lot of shit has to go right for them to make it to the finals. And I just personally can't buy into that. I have confidence in a lot more teams outside of them. Now, the caveat is you do have Kawhi Leonard. He's somebody that has elevated guys when guys have not been playing their best basketball in the playoffs. But he hasn't played that high level basketball in the postseason in almost like 2 years now. So it's been a while. That's asking a lot. I just can't see it, man. I'm not bought in on the Clippers at all.
I'm definitely not fully bought in either. And I think this team is good. I don't think it's great, though. Kawhi Leonard is great, and that's what gives them their upside. But arguably the biggest thing holding me back right now as we sit here at the end of February, and as much as you mentioned, Gabe, they made some very good pickups over the last week between the deadline and Russ. And those pickups are very valuable, and bringing in that type of talent is very good. But bringing in the quality and the amount of talent they've brought in is also a big concern for me because they're probably the only team in the league right now that at the end of February, and I trust Ty Lue, but still have no idea what their rotations are, no idea who they're closing the game with. Hell, I could argue don't even know which center they're going to play more minutes come playoff time, depending on how Zubac ends up playing in the playoffs compared to Plumlee. There's just a lot of rotation questions and who's closing games questions for this team. And we're a month and a half away from the playoffs, and there's time to figure that out. As I mentioned, Ty Lue's a good head coach. But for a team that already has only been good and not great, when there's that significant of a concern hovering over you to the point where is it Russ? Is Eric Gordon getting those minutes? Is Norm consistently there? Is Plumlee in or is Zubac in? Is Marcus Morris going to pick it up or is he going to fall out of that? Does Terrence Mann fall in? Like there's 8, 9, 10 guys who you could debate being in their closing 5. And that's a great problem to have in October. It's not as good of a problem to have as we approach March. So that's something they really need to figure out sooner rather than later. It's something they can figure out, but that's something that is really worrisome to me as we get closer to that point in time, because guys need to know their roles. Roles need to be defined. Egos need to be put in check, and guys need to be put in their boxes, because that's just part of winning teams, because you can't have Eric Gordon out there thinking he's the number 2 option still, because he's not. And those are the types of things that need to be set in place now, so that in a month and a half, they know what they're doing. And right now, again, it's only been a couple games, but I don't see that. Ty Lue clearly doesn't know what he's doing yet, and that's the most immediate concern to me.
You know, you do make a good point. I do think there's a lot of questions, and there's always a lot of questions with the Clippers. But I guess my big thing with them, man, is like they just feel – and they felt almost all year like they're just in coast mode. And I guess, you know, call me like buying into the propaganda, but I just have a gut feeling that they're going to lock in and they're going to be that team like we've seen like Miami after some of these regular seasons, or like even some of the Cavs teams used to do in LeBron's second run, where it's like they were cool in the regular season, but then they got to the playoffs and they're like, all right, let's go. Because, you know, this team has a lot of older guys, especially, that it's like, hey, 82 games is a long time. Let's just get there, and then let's turn it up, because we don't care who we're playing. We think we can beat anybody. And the way this Western Conference has been, they probably can.
Yeah, well, they can't really coast anymore because, as Dev mentioned, this is a team that has to gel. They got to figure out who's going to be on the court when it matters. And there's other teams that have been in coast mode that I trust a lot more than the Clippers. Just going to be honest, man. A lot of teams, one that we're going to talk about. Like, I have more faith in them than I do the LA Clippers. So, you got Kawhi. It's possible that they could make some real noise. But I go back to, would I be surprised that they made the finals? I kind of would be surprised. I'm not going to lie. I would be a little surprised if they made the NBA finals.
Yeah, me too. And just to briefly mention the notion of coasting, they're still only 2.5 games away from not even being in the play-in. They don't get the coast. They don't get that luxury right now. So they, for the rotation's sake and the fact that they just need to make the playoffs, they need to commit to the last 20 games of the season.
Yeah, they got to go like 15-5 for me to be like, okay, maybe they got a little chance.
They're going to flip the switch with Russ, man. He stayed in L.A.
This is another guy. And I'm probably one of the bigger defenders of Russell Westbrook. I feel like he got scapegoated in L.A. But, look, Russ has a playoff history of really playing his team out of series in the playoffs, man. Like, the bubble just comes to mind so heavily because they play Anthony Davis on and be like, dude, we don't care if you shoot. Go ahead. Shoot as many times as you want. We got Anthony Davis guarding you. He's just going to roam. Do what you want, Russ. And he effectively shot the Houston Rockets out of that series because he could do anything offensively. So Russ is the guy that can get exposed big time in the playoffs. And it's not just affecting his play. It's going to affect the entire team. So, you know, there might be a lot of series like how we saw the other night where Russ is not playing much in the second half of basketball games.
He was just so in limbo, though. It's just like, I feel like it has to be different now because not only did he get the experience of knowing his role and coming off the bench on the Lakers this year, but then also, like, this is a team where, like, he knows they want him there. So he don't got to be ultra aggressive, show I can still do it because he's been on, like, 4 teams in 4 years. He can finally just play and focus.
That's fine, but even guys with minimal roles like Tony Allen, his offense was exploitable in the playoffs. Like, they were putting real deal centers on him and be like, we don't give a damn what you do. Go ahead. Your world. Go ahead. Shoot as many times as you want, Tony Allen, and effectively played himself out of the series. And that was one of the best defenders in the world. Russ is the best playmaker on this team. There's definitely the possibility he gets played out of the series because coaches are smart and they will just put their big on him and let him do whatever he wants. And effectively, it will hurt his team more than it helps them.
Yeah, I mean, whenever Russ is going to be on the court, there's going to be 2 non-3-point shooting threats on the court. And that's going to cause the Clippers offense to run into some problems. As, like you said, Tyrik, as long as coaches recognize they can help off of their big a bit, they can help off of Russ, they can send that extra pressure, extra blitzes, extra doubles to Kawhi and the Paul George if needed. It's going to make for some tough at times with Russ on the floor as far as their spacing goes. Now, if they get forced into some small ball matchups, that honestly might be best for them because then Russ can be the only non-shooter on the floor. And as much as Zubac can be good, like if they play Memphis and he's going up against Steven Adams all the time, then that's fine. But as far as their offensive spacing goes, they probably benefit from having to go small this postseason as long as they don't get absolutely torched by whoever ends up guarding the other team's small ball 5, because the Clippers don't really have a great one of those either other than Covington, but he's probably on the outside looking in on most of their rotations at this point.
Yeah, and it's like a lot of the matchups. Like if you go against Phoenix, DA already exploited their small ball lineup a couple seasons ago. Like if he's locked in, there's the potential of that happening again. Obviously, you mentioned like if they do that against Memphis, that might not work out. And then against Jokic, you don't want to go small against Jokic, man. Only a select few guys can deal with Jokic that are undersized, and Draymond Green's really one of the only guys that comes to mind. The Clippers don't have Draymond Green on that basketball team.
Yeah, I will say I think the best route for this team to go far is if the Suns go on a little bit of a run and they pass up Sacramento. I think in that case, if the Clippers are on the side of the bracket that has them face the Kings in round 1 and then say the Nuggets in round 2, I think those are both incredibly winnable series. And I think that's a lot. I hate to say it because it is like, if you're a contender, you should be beating the good teams. But I do think their best path to the finals would definitely be playing only one of the Suns or the Grizzlies, as would be most people's.
So they're in that, like, everything has to go right for them territory.
I think they're in Philly tier. And I think saying that Philly's a contender, I think I would say the Clippers are a contender on the same level.
That's fair. I just have a little more faith in Philly, man. I really do.
I don't. James Harden, notorious playoff choker. Doc Rivers, notorious playoff choker. And B lost to the Hawks.
Paul George,
that's what I mean.
Choker.
real like
Westbrook,
similar,
notoriously his game lessons in the postseason.
Real similar stuff, but I think Ty Lue is a little bit less of a choker, a lot less of a choker than Doc Rivers. I'll tell you that.
That's fair.
And
that's fair.
I would probably take the Clippers supporting cast as well, and it's also Kawhi Leonard. And Kawhi Leonard's playoff track record is better than Joel Embiid's.
I might take Philly supporting cast.
I think I would too.
You know why?
I think I would too.
Dev made the great point, and this is one thing Doc Rivers does a hell of a job. You will know your role on a Doc Rivers basketball team. You know exactly what you're going to do every single night. And guys in Philly, they know their role. They don't overstep their boundaries. There's definitely potential that could happen in LA if they don't get things gelling as soon as possible. So that's why I just have a little more confidence in Philly supporting cast. I like Milton as a role player. PJ Tucker, Tyrese Maxey, I would call him a role player. Like, I have more confidence in those guys.
Definitely. I'm taking Philly over the Clippers any day of the week come this postseason as well. But we will move on to the current 6 seed, the Dallas Mavericks. They, of course, acquired Kyrie Irving at the deadline. That's going to be the marquee move and argument for anyone that thinks they are a contender. But I'll start with you, Tyrik. Do you think the Mavericks with Kyrie Irving are a title contender?
Nah. Real deal pretenders, man. If they could have got Kyrie without having to give up Dorian Finney-Smith, I might think a little differently. But nah, this is not a contending basketball team. They might be fun, maybe win it. They could win a series. You got Luka, you got Kyrie, you could win a series. But as far as making it to the finals, nah. Give me Memphis, give me Denver, I might even have more faith in the Clippers for real. Like, I think they're a lesser tier than the Clippers.
Yeah, this is a pretender. I think you look at it, this is a championship backcourt, and that's about it. I think this starting front court is pretty mid at best, and like Christian Wood's production's only really gone down as the season's progressed, and the rest of this roster outside of their top 2 just doesn't I don't think it really holds up enough. I think people can.
If the White Powell's getting playoff minutes.
Well, apparently Dwight Powell is still deserving of the starting role over Christian Wood, according to the genius that is Jason Kidd. So
Jason,
I don't know, man.
Yeah, man.
Jason
Like,
Kidd. I was liking what he was doing for a bit over there, but man, I
it's
don't
the
know
Jason
anymore,
Kidd
man.
cycle, man. It happens every stop, bro. It really does.
It does. It really does.
I know,
Josh Green
Luka-
just disappears in the fourth. Like man's your third best player, arguably. Like,
he really might
get
be
him
their
out there,
third
man.
best player. Like, no joke.
Get him out there.
I think he is.
yeah,
And he's easily their best perimeter defender. And maybe other than Reggie Bullock, but like those are by far their best two perimeter guys. Like, come
100%. 100%.
yeah. Luka, a bad man. Kyrie gonna get his, but if I'm gonna throw out the thing with like, I don't know what KD status is gonna be. I sure as hell don't know what Kyrie status is gonna be. So it's like
dude, Maxi Kleber's gonna have to come back and play like he did in the playoffs last year, but maybe step it up a notch, man. Like, he's gonna have to be better than that. And he was so good in the playoffs for them last season. Like, on both sides of the floor, he's gonna have to step it up even more. He's missed a lot of time. You know, Gabe mentioned Christian Wood. His production's been spotty. He's been missing time too, which doesn't help. Same thing with like Tim Hardaway. Too many question marks, but they do have their top two guys, so they'll be a tough out. Just for having Luka and Kyrie Irving, they'll be a tough out, but not contenders.
Yeah, tough out, fun team, but don't quite have the surrounding pieces of the defense to get it done. The last team that I think could potentially be warranting a discussion is the defending champs, the Golden State Warriors. I personally do not have them as contenders, but we'll move to you, Gabe. Do you think, as the Steph Curry fan, that the Golden State Warriors are contenders this season?
I don't.
Wow.
I'm surprised.
I don't think they are, which, you know, I hate to say it because Clay has been a hell of a lot better recently. So I'll give him his respect. He has been a hell of a lot better recently. You know, front court looks kind of mid, but it's like, you know, Kevon Looney, he knows his role. He's played in this offense for so long. He was damn near one of their MVPs in the conference finals last season. So it's like, he's cool. Jordan Poole, a little bit inconsistent. But then it's just like, I don't know how much I trust this team's bench this year compared to last year. It felt like last year they were giving a lot more production out consistently, whereas this season I'm just not really sure. And then just overall, like dealing with like Wiggins not playing, Draymond not playing, Steph's out right now. Like they've been able to keep it afloat while Steph's out, but it's like, you know, this just doesn't look like it's shaping up to be their year, man. I don't know if they're really going to be able to get their feet underneath them enough to really go on some crazy run. However, of all teams that are like not contenders, this team was going to be a crazy difficult out. I think the fact that your reward for being the 2 seed is playing this team is tough. But just given all the adversity against them this season, I just don't think this is the one.
I have them as like dark horse, man, because if they get in the dance, they're gonna be tough to beat. And if like you mentioned, Gabe, the biggest like thing for me is just the health of guys. Like Steph's been hurt 2 different times this year. He had the one like major injury last season where he missed a chunk of time. But he's had 2 different injuries this season. That's a little concerning. Wiggins has been in and out of the lineup like it seems like every other week. Concerning for sure. Concerning the bench isn't as good last season, but I don't think the drop-off is that bad, especially with Clay kind of ascending more. And, you know, with a healthy Steph, you would expect Poole to move back to the bench maybe. Or even if you move, you know, they were running like a small ball lineup for a little bit. You know, then Looney's on the bench. Like, they'll still have some type of production coming off the bench. It's just a matter for me getting into the playoffs first off and being healthy once you're there. Because we kind of saw last year, like, Steph didn't really play much the back half of the season. But he got into the playoffs and it seemed like he didn't miss a beat. So health is the main thing. I had them as like a fringe contender because they're the defending champs. They're a dynasty. If they get in the playoffs, they have a chance. Like I would not be surprised if they made it to the finals, even if they are a 7th seed. But this will be their most difficult road for sure.
I want to give them that benefit of the doubt, but I'm struggling to do it this year. Their road record's a concern, their defense is a concern, and their lack of depth is a concern. And that's just too many concerns for me right now to put them up on that pedestal of contenders. They're probably the team that is most likely to pull off a surprise of teams that are currently not on my contenders list, because it is the Warriors. They have that pedigree. They know how to get things done in the playoffs. But this is a team where last year, we know what they did in the playoffs. We know Wiggins was great. We know Curry was great. But they were really, really good defensively last year. They were number 1 in the league in defensive rating last year. They're back half this year. That defense just hasn't been there. And I expect it'll be better in the playoffs. But we do have to remember, even still, Gary Payton's back. We don't know how much he's playing. And even though we do think of Otto Porter as a bench guy, Otto Porter was really, really important for them in the playoffs last year. So that value lost hurts. That defensive value hurts. That spacing hurts that you're not getting anymore. And if this team was starting to show a little bit more sign of life on the road, getting Curry back, I could have a little bit more hope. But even with the experience they have, I just have a few too many concerns about this roster this year to buy into them. I'm definitely not out on this group as a whole having future contention plans. Next year's a new season. Who knows what their offseason holds? They have some big decisions to make over the next 12 months, but that could still be in order. But for this season, from what I've seen so far through 61 games for them, I'm going to have to hold out and call them pretenders.
That's definitely fair. I easily see why you guys are on the other side of the fence for sure, because it's like your eye test is really telling you, like, yeah, this team defensively is not as good. The injuries are a concern, and just, overall, just not being as deep as the team as they were last season. Like, all that is right there. I guess I'm just kind of caught in, like, it is the Warriors. Like, if any team's going to do it, it would be them. And this would just be another storybook type of shit for this team. We dealt with injuries. We're only the 7th seed, but play into the finals. Like, we're the Golden State Warriors.
I can see, like, why you would say that. Because at the end of the day, like, it's just like the old days of, like, you can't bet against LeBron, right? Like, LeBron in 2018, like, that roster was terrible. But you're like, but it's LeBron on the Cavs. Like, they're a contender for sure. And, that in that scenario, like, people who said that were proven right. So it's like, yeah, but you can't count out the Warriors. And it's like, man, look, you can't. But it's like, I don't know. I think this West has some better teams than that East LeBron went through.
Yeah, definitely. For sure. No Laker love? Did LeBron kill the dark horse thoughts?
No Laker love. I might have brought it up just for fun if LeBron was still healthy, but no.
Yeah.
No, definitely not. Honestly, I will say if Zion was healthy, I might have brought up the Pelicans too, because I do still like this roster. But they've been too bad as of late, and Zion is still not healthy. So
he is showing how valuable he is, man.
But all in all, Gabe led the way with his total amount of contenders being 8.
Damn.
Tyrik had 6, and I had 5. And considering 4 and 5 years ago, there was about 2. Not too bad as parity goes across the league. And I must say it has been very good, even just from a regular season standpoint this season. So
I've been seeing a lot of people say there's only like 4, and I'm like, at first I'm like, yeah, that seems right, but I'm like, nah, there's a couple teams that are like on that fringe. So yeah, 6 is like just the perfect number.
Yeah, I may be a little too lenient. I went ahead and I ranked my contenders just like where I see them from top to bottom. And so, like, my tier 1, like, these are like contenders. Like, I would place a bet on them to win the title. I got the Celtics at the top, then the Bucks, then Phoenix, just because I think Phoenix at their best can contend with those two. And then my tier 2, my dark horse tier, that's where I got the Grizzlies, Sixers, and Clippers. And then tier 3 is my, like, fringe tier of Nuggets and Cavs. And honestly, I could probably cut both of them just because I think so much would have to go right for either of them to get there. But you know what? I'll show them their love. I'll stay consistent. I'll keep with the 8, but that's kind of how I have it tiered out. Like, just because I don't want to call them like a complete pretender, because I do think they'll put up a good fight and they won't go out like sad. Yeah. But I guess my definition of contender is a little bit looser. Because when I think pretender, I think of like the Knicks when they got exposed by Trae Young.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I tried to be a little bit more strict with myself this year because I was a little bit too lenient last year, and so I wanted to make sure I was a bit more strict this year. Briefly, I just want to mention on the point of there only being 4 contenders. I think the only way you can get to that is if you like truly only consider the A+ tier of contenders, and then for me that only becomes 3 because most people's 4th team is Denver, and we clearly have a consensus that they're not on that tier. But the Suns, Bucks, and Celtics are clearly the 3 favorites to me. But I wouldn't be shocked if the 76ers get in. I wouldn't be shocked if the Grizzlies get in. You guys obviously have a couple other teams in there as well. But those are obviously the 3 teams that most people, plus the Nuggets for some, are expecting to be there. But there's definitely a world where a couple of other teams could sneak in.
Yeah, half the reason I'm so high on Memphis really is just because the Suns have that volatility. If the Suns, I like knew for sure they were gonna have Kevin Durant suiting up in the Western Conference Finals, should they make it there, I'd probably pick them every time. I'd probably place a substantial bet on them winning that series convincingly. It's just the fact that there's just that giant question mark always looming over them, that if that doesn't come to fruition, I do think the Grizzlies would be my pick. And so that's kind of what puts them at 4 and why I think they have a little bit better of a chance than the Sixers or the Clippers.
Yeah. I got 3 in each conference, so I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if there's a team that's going to put some pressure on the Suns, it's going to be a team that can have Jaren Jackson on KD and can have Dillon Brooks on Devin Booker for an entire series, with probably some Desmond Bane on Booker because Jaren will get in foul trouble. But that's another discussion.
Hey, man, he's still a great defender this season.
Definitely. That is a team that is going to make it very, very frustrating for a lot of offenses come playoff time.
I like it though, man. I thought somebody would give the Mavericks a contender nod, man. I didn't. Yeah. I knew it wasn't going to be me, but I'm like, hey, y'all love you some Luka, man. So
what kind of podcast do you think we are, man?
I mean, look. When you guys knew that the Nuggets weren't contenders for me, you had to know that I wasn't going to put the Mavericks in there. You just had to. Like, there's no shot. You would have had to call me out heavy on that one.
I kind of expected you not to have the Nuggets. Like, I wasn't really that surprised.
Yeah.
So I just know how Devin is. Like, if the defense is questionable, I don't like that team. Like, that's how you are.
Not come playoffs.
That's true. I was so close to going Nuggets as pretenders, and then I was like,
I thought about it.
I was like, I'll give them their respect, and I'm probably gonna get flamed if I don't have them as contenders. But it's like, I came on here and it took me a second to say my answer, which is why them and the Cavs are like at the very bottom of my contenders. Like, should they be on my list? I don't know, but
could you get flamed for that though? Like, I feel like we've had wilder takes on this podcast than the Denver Nuggets.
Yeah, definitely. I've said some way crazier things than that for that to be of concern. You're talking to the guy who had the Chris Middleton prediction, who had the Cavs as a 1 seed. You just said a couple of weeks ago that Aaron Gordon was going to be an all-star. That Donovan Mitchell was the 6th best shooting guard, or 7th best shooting guard in the league. Like, CJ was like a top 4 shooting guard or top 3. Man, I've been all over the shop.
I know I've had some bad takes, man. All right. I had the Grizzlies as an 8 seed.
That was rough. Gabe leaving SGA off of his guard list this summer too was a tough one.
But I was the only one to put De'Aaron Fox on there though. All my
also
respect for that.
That is also
All
That's
my
fair,
respect for that.
All we remember are the L's, though, man. We don't remember the dubs.
The person I should have left off to put SGA, or I guess to put Fox on, because that was the guy that you guys didn't have. The guy I should have left off was probably LaMelo. Respect.
Same. He will soon.
And had Shea and Fox up there as that 9 and 10 spot on the point guard list. But
between us actually using a proper website for positions this upcoming off season and the breakout seasons this year, there's going to be a lot of shifts on a couple of those lists.
Oh man, I'm not looking forward to it.
I mean, we unanimously had Paul George as the best shooting guard in the league last year.
Yeah.
And now
he will unanimously not be the number one. So,
and I don't know if there's a way we make that unanimous, bro. Because surely, because this playoffs will probably feature them both prominently in some sort of fashion. At least 2 series for both. Booker and Donovan Mitchell are both guys that play well in the playoffs and are going to have probably at least 2 series this postseason. So, like,
I think
there's going to be some big moments.
I think I was still go with Booker.
yeah, I mean, there's a real interesting discussion of how far Paul George falls down that list because Donovan Mitchell and Booker are there, Anthony Edwards is there, Jaylen Brown is there, DeMar DeRozan is there. Yeah, man, you really might tumble.
Jaylen Brown's the only guy that you just said that I'm like confident is past Paul George.
Is past like not better than Paul George?
No, that is definitely better than Paul George.
Oh.
Well, I think Jaylen Brown is definitely better than Paul George, but
Okay.
Anthony Edwards still has his moments where I'm like, shit, I don't know.
He does, but Paul George still has his moments where you're like, I don't know, man.
And then, like, I don't know how DeMar DeRozan can be classified as a shooting guard on any list, so I don't think he'll be on there.
He is, according to Basketball Reference, if that's what we're using. That's why he's on my shooting guard list currently.
Does Zach LaVine miss a bunch of games, or is their rotations just
No, Zach
straight?
LaVine is also a shooting guard.
shooting
They're
guards,
on my very rough, unedited list. They're currently back-to-back.
Man, I hate that, bro. That's like when the Warriors used to have like KD and Draymond listed as power forwards. Like, y'all are in the same starting lineup. How y'all both play the same?
I think it's the same thing with the Timberwolves too. Basketball Reference still has Cat and Gobert as centers.
Yeah, weird.
Which, I mean, I think the split is usually where you play the majority of your minutes at.
Nah, they just sometimes I think they just like be freestyling. Like, let's put DeMar at 2 guard, man. He hasn't played shooting guard since like the Obama administration. Let's go ahead and do it.
Okay, come on, bro. He played the 2 guard in 2018. Tyrik just
up top. Oh, he is gonzo.
I was about to say he just did
out of here. To be fair to them, in his bio they do have him listed as a shooting guard, but then on his position for the year they have him listed as a small forward. So,
is he listed as a power forward for any of those years? Because there was some weird stuff with that.
The last year in San Antonio and the first year in Chicago, he is listed as a power forward.
He's got to be one of the weirdest players.
In San Antonio, he went shooting guard, small forward, power forward.
I feel like that's gonna be like a forgotten era. I know we keep going back to it, but it's like that. Like, what jersey will he be remembered in? And it's gone from like with him. It's like, hey, this Bulls stuff. You might remember him briefly playing for the Bulls, but like mostly the Raptors. But I think you'll show people him in a Spurs jersey like 10 years from now, and they'll be like, "What? He played there? That make no sense."
That's definitely going to be a forgotten era. But, I mean, that's kind of how things with the Spurs work post-Duncan era, so.
It's going to be like James Harden on the Nets or something. I wonder if people will forget about that, because it was like the biggest storyline in the league for like a year and a half, but like also he didn't really do much there besides play against the Bucks on one leg.
They'll probably remember it for all the bad reasons.
Yeah. There was too much drama around that team for that to not be remembered. It's not like DeMar where he just kind of sat in the shadows for 3 years.
Nah, most forgotten era is going to be Russell Westbrook being a Washington Wizard.
The most forgotten?
of players currently in the league, and like they were like relevant. Not talking about like T-Mac on the Spurs or something like that. Like,
Kyle
a
Lowry
player-
on Miami. We talked about Miami earlier. We did not bring up Kyle Lowry one time.
Well, that's unfortunately that's kind of where
We mentioned
Lowry's
Gabe
at.
Vincent. We mentioned Mac.
technical difficulties.
this man
Tyrik?
is struggling
No.
tonight. It has been a minute since we've had technical difficulties on the pod.
Hey
So.
man, it's tradition. At least he waited till we were 2 hours in, very
This
politely.
is true. Very, very polite. We were done with the crux of the
Yeah,
conversation.
that's what the
The
crux of
key debate had
conversation.
been had, and then he got his points and just wanted to dip, but couldn't find a way to politely do it. So that was that.
Man,
Now we got two of them in here. Oh boy.
man.
There we go.
Tyrik, what is going on?
My browser just keeps crashing, bro.
My
Chrome's
guys,
not messing
my
with me.
guys Wi-Fi is just wild.
It's not even the Wi-Fi. Like Chrome just keeps like closing out, like on its own. It just keeps crashing.
Man. I'm sitting here. I'm baffled. I had 8 contenders. That's damn near a third of the league.
Yeah.
Like
Like
half of the playoff teams.
after like going through it, I feel like my definition probably was a little bit too loose, and I probably would cut the Nuggets and the Cavs out. But
We
I
probably
want to
should've
stay
done-
consistent. But I want to stay
We probably should
consistent.
have done tiers. We probably should have did tiers. That might have been a little like maybe to like make it not as confusing.
That was my big thing with like. I liked your criteria of like would I be surprised if they made the finals, because the Nuggets and the Cavs I'd be very surprised if they made the finals. The Sixers and the Clippers and the Grizzlies, actually not even the Grizzlies, because I think it just takes some that happened to the Suns. But if
Yeah.
the Sixers and Clippers made the finals, like I'd be like a little surprised, but like I see it. And
I
then
would
like
really be
my
surprised
top
if the
four.
Nuggets made the finals.
Oh yeah, I would for sure.
That is just
It
like
definitely would be.
wow.
Definitely would be.
Are they the modern day Utah Jazz?
The team made the team made like one conference finals run, and they had to come back from 3-1 twice to do it, and that was in the bubble. And like I think that was,
That was
the bubble,
pre
right?
MVP Jokic, man. Pre MVP.
But then like it took like Jamal Murray was playing like out of his mind, and it's like we haven't seen anybody that high level next to Jokic since then. And yeah, Jokic himself has gotten better, but we haven't seen like
There. Let's do some
I
tiers.
don't know.
let's go, man. All right. The top is what the
Okay,
top
so-
is. The top is what the top
Yeah.
is.
So where are we
Okay.
putting the Clippers?
B.
Because I'm putting them B.
B.
I think they're good in B.
B
I thought,
is like B
my
is like
answer is
everything
no.
has to go right. B is like everything has to go right.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
I
they're
agree.
B.
To me,
76ers, I would have an A.
I think Philly is high B, but I think they're like I do think they're probably B above Clippers. I'll put my biases aside, but I also think the Sixers
That's
are like
fine for
an
now.
everything has to go right team because
That's fine. Because I did say that too. I said everything kind of has to go right for them.
to me I have the Grizzlies as A, and it's because for the Grizzlies to make it, to me it just takes something going wrong with Phoenix. Whereas for the Sixers to make it, I think it's something going wrong with Milwaukee and Boston. Like they have to have a twofold, like everything goes right. To me,
That's fair.
Memphis beats everybody else clean. They just need Phoenix to have a stumble.
Put Dallas in C. They're not contenders.
Yeah, Dallas are definitely at C.
Dallas.
Who else do- Golden State. Probably
They're-
here for you. Or high
They're
C.
like high B. Or
High B.
mid B.
High
Could
B.
be.
Because I said I got more faith in them than I do the Clippers. I did say that.
This is
Those two
true.
I feel like
This is
have to be
true.
next to each other because I think they each got one contender pick.
Sadly, the Kings are C. Yeah.
Cavs are C.
Cavs.
I would have Cleveland
Happy to be
above.
there.
I would have Cleveland above the rest of C, but they can be in C.
Yeah, I agree.
Same
Denver
with
as well,
I think yeah.
I'd put-
Nuggets and Cavs. Are
I'd put
there.
Denver high C.
I like
Y'all
that.
put Denver in C? Wow. Y'all really don't believe in them that much. That is funny.
Nah, no shot. No shot.
That's funny. Wow.
No shot.
Start the Jokic
Miami, I'd probably
fake
have in
MVP
D.
Discord. Ooh,
Yeah, Miami. Is that the only team we
The-
talked about? That's
The
not.
Knicks, I'd probably put in D.
The
Yeah.
Knicks.
Knicks happy to
And then everybody else, not a chance.
That's
Not a
about it,
chance.
Well,
That's
the
about it.
Timberwolves could
I'd
hit their
I'd
one
personally
seed
do
arc.
that, but
Ooh, okay.
they could.
I would too, because I said Philly was like that next tier. Personally,
It's just to me the Grizzlies are also that next tier, so I feel like to me they'd at least have to be on the same tier.
well, so I would take
Yeah,
Philly
argument for that, too.
over Memphis. I'll take Philly
Sure.
over Memphis.
I will compromise with you on that.
Yeah, me
That's
too.
fair.
This is a pretty
Who's the-
balanced tier list too. C's a little deep, but like 2 or 3 per tier is good.
Who's the top dog though? Like if y'all had to put money on who's winning the finals, who are y'all putting that money on?
Give me Milwaukee.
Y'all know my answer, but I want to hear y'all. And why is it not
Give me
the Celtics?
Milwaukee. Milwaukee are playing the best basketball in the league right now, and even though Chris Middleton still hasn't got back to complete full minutes in full form, I still trust their guys down the stretch in the finals more than I do Boston's guys. Tatum's been good, but I'm still a little bit worried about how he's going to do down the stretch in playoff time. He's been considerably worse enough compared to his performances against good teams this year compared to his performances against bad teams. And it's not enough to say he's not a great player, but it's enough for me to have a little bit more concern come the back end of the postseason.
Jason Tatum fears the Knicks, man. I'm sorry to say it.
That's fair. That's fair.
Hey, so
Yeah,
then
Gabe's
Tyrik,
gonna say the
you
Clippers.
I'm not gonna say the Clippers. so Tyrik, you're the Celtics, right? I would assume so.
Of course.
Okay, so we have one
No,
Milwaukee. We have one Milwaukee and one Celtics. So here I am to break the tie.
Don't want
Or
Phoenix
so
out.
you might think. Because I say we turn this into a friendly wager. Now, I don't know what the wager is. I don't know how we decide this. But I'm gonna go with Phoenix, man. Let's make it fun. Let's have the pod have 3 separate top dogs. I'll go
Okay.
Phoenix. We got one for each of our S tier contenders. That way, that they'll all look equal on S tier if one of us picks them as the top dog. I think that's only fair. And the rationale I give is this. Before Devin Booker got injured, they were in contention for a 1 seed. They've been there before, not winning the finals, but they've been to the finals. So all 3 of these teams, they all kind of are equal standing there. And then they picked up a 2-time finals MVP and one of the 5 best players in basketball in the middle of the season. They have a top probably 3 to 5 center in their conference, depending on who you ask. I think Jokic and Sabonis are probably better. But anybody beyond that, Cat hasn't played in 20 years, and people aren't too high on Gobert this year. So I think he's a top 3 to 5 center in that conference, depending on who you ask. So they got him. They got Kevin Durant, who's the top 5 player in the world. Devin Booker, who you guys both, I think, just said is the top shooting guard in the league. Chris Paul is one of the greatest playmakers of all time, and they still kept a good supporting cast even with all that. So given the fact that we're judging this on paper right now, and just the fact that Kevin hasn't even played yet, and they'll probably ease him in. I don't think they'll work him too hard because the rest of their roster is still good, man. So given all that, and the fact that the West is a bit of an easier conference to get through than the East this year, if the Bucks and the Celtics have a conference finals against each other, that's going to be probably a deep series, probably going 7, and they're probably going to play a super physical series for that 7 games. So if the Suns can get through everybody else, because you guys aren't too high on anybody else in the West, I was the only one that had anybody else in the West even on A tier. Given that, say the Suns win the conference finals in like 5 games, 6 games, they'll get a little bit of time to rest. And for having aging players like a Chris Paul, like a Kevin Durant, That's what they need. And so they can come into the finals well rested and get business done. Everybody that's important on that roster has been there before. And they'll be raring and ready to go, man.
That was a great sales pitch, man. That was a great pitch.
That was a very good sales pitch. Given you mentioned wagers, Gabe, let's put it this way. I don't know what the next draft will be, whether it's a mock draft, whether it's a U25 draft this summer. Let's say whoever's team wins it, if one of the three do, gets number 1 OV in the next draft we do.
Or we get to pick the draft order.
Or we can do that too, considering we may have someone who doesn't like number 1 OV.
Facts.
Depends
like
on the
that.
draft,
like
One might like Victor, but if it's not a mock draft, then you might want to fall back a little bit.
Give me the back-to-back. You never know. I like it. Yeah, let's do that.
I like this, man. I like this. Gotta put some stakes on it, man. Continuity.
Little lighter stakes. We're not betting people with each other, but this is a fair bet because we like our drafts here. We like to win these drafts.
I like to win the drafts. Hey, man. We probably all lost the All-Star draft because
I like my All-Star team.
I like my team on paper, but Giannis decided he wanted to be head coach.
Who drafted Tatum? Devin did?
I did, I'm pretty sure, yeah. Yeah.
Great pick. Amazing pick.
Tatum and the hometown kid.
Great picks. I'm about to go back and watch our draft videos.
Hey, you'll see me win all of them, man. What can I say?
Definitely didn't win all.
We definitely gonna have to go back and watch them now.
The under 25 draft. Hey, man. If you have the document for the under 25 draft, I need to see it because I feel like I
gotta see if I do.
I got my team somewhere in my notebook, but I don't even feel like pulling it out.
Didn't you take who's your first pick in that draft?
Me? I don't even know.
I think mine was Ant. Man.
Mine was probably Luka then. Because I don't think I was third.
I was third. I had Ant.
Oh, yeah. I probably took Luka. Either Luka or Tatum, because I assume those are probably the first two off the board.
I think we didn't have Tatum because he turns 25 this year.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he was not on the list. Yeah, I don't have my draft document for that. I must have written that out, and I probably don't have it anymore. But, well, no, I think we did use Tatum. I have Tatum here listed in my short list of names. I think I took Tatum at 2. I think.
Dang, so I took Luka at 1.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, the only docs I have saved is awards predictions, all-star draft, and all-star ballot, standings predictions, and then our top 10 players lists.
I write mine down, so let's see. It's got to be somewhere in here.
Hey, man, I took a dub for real. I'm looking at this top 10 point guard list. Hold on. Y'all was calling me crazy, I feel like, for Chris Paul at 9. And I think Chris Paul at 9 plays pretty well. I had Dame at 4 after he missed, like, all the last season.
All-star.
I think that aged pretty well. Trey 5, Kyrie 6, Drew 7. He was an all-star. And Darius Garland at 8. I feel like y'all said I was a little low, but I think all the guys above him have been better than him, man.
I didn't have Dame because I was factoring his injury, so I didn't have Dame.
My only L on that whole list. I didn't even have LaMelo on the list either. I didn't have LaMelo or Shea. I'd probably take Chris Paul off and put one of them on there.
Yeah, that list's gonna be looking really different.
I know this under 25 draft is in here somewhere.
Shooting guard list. Yeah, Paul George and I already have Booker at 2 and Mitchell at 4. James Harden and Paul George are probably just going to move down because Jaylen Brown was at 5 for me. So those already my top 3 next year will probably be guys that were already top 5. Desmond Bane at 10. Bradley Beal at 9. McCollum at 8. Donovan L.
Man, you guys don't get to talk about McCollum at 8 being an L. I get to hold that one for the Insider Pod.
Yeah. Hey, nah.
God,
my small
predictions are terrible.
listen. My small forwards list. When nobody else wanted to do it, I did. On the small forward rankings, I had
Tatum.
Jason Tatum at number 1, and I think we all had a different number 1.
Yeah,
So I would take that W and run with it.
I didn't want to be a homer, man.
You know, looking back, I like my small forward rankings actually. Tatum, LeBron, Kawhi, Jimmy, Middleton, Ingram, DeRozan, and Mikal Wiggins was my top 10. And low key, Wiggins has had some injuries, so he's probably not on there. But then my 11 was OG. I'm really not too mad at that top 10. A small forward might have been my most accurate ranking.
Maybe it's on my iPad. Because I could have swore I wrote it down, but I can't find it. The U25 draft.
U25, yeah. I would have had it written down somewhere, but I don't know if I still have that kicking about anymore.
All I remember, I think I had Anthony Edwards, and I forgot to take Onyeka Okongwu.
Right, yeah, because I took him.
Yeah, couldn't think of him.
I took a L in the power forward list.
Yeah, I'm going
Giannis-
through now. I got all of our teams here.
Giannis at 1, KD at 2.
KD at 2, such an L.
I mean, I got 83, Zion 4, Pascal 5, Draymond 6, Sabonis 7. For some reason, I switched Jaren and John Collins at the last second to put Collins at 8 and Jaren at 9, which was a complete L on my part. I don't know why I switched them. I guess I bought into him being injured too much.
I almost wonder if you switched again because I have Jaren at 8 on my list for you.
Oh.
I have you with Jaren at 8, John at 9, Tobias at 10.
Okay, it has their names, and then it has, like, in parentheses at the end, Collins here and Jaren here. I think I probably I think I switched. Yeah, you're probably right.
Sean Collins was off of my list. Honorable mentions, I did have Lowry, man. I should have trusted my gut.
Yeah, he was my 13th guy. 13th guy.
My honorable mentions was Julius Randle, which he was probably on this list again if we did it now, and Paolo.
I trusted the process, man. I had Julius on there. Number 9.
You and me both. Both at 9. And you had Sabonis the highest at 6. I had him the lowest at 8.
Center list.
Kind of low.
Although even still, Sabonis is tough because he's so good, but you still have Giannis, KD, AD, Zion, Siakam, and then
He's
Jaren.
been playing center this year too, so it's like
the Timberwolves folded the center list, bro, because my one with Jokic, Embiid, Cat, Bam, Rudy, Ayton, Jared Allen, Robert Williams, Valanciunas, and Christian Wood at 9 and 10 is kind of funny.
That might have been my biggest dub of the predictions was having Bam at number 3 on the centers list.
I wanted to do it so bad too. I just couldn't.
That might have been my biggest dub.
I had to
Karl
see
Anthony
the
Towns still played basketball, man.
How are the awards shaping up, man? We all had Embiid as MVP, right?
I had Embiid first,
double check
Giannis
now.
second, and Luka third because I said that there's no way Jokic was about to get 3 in a row. And
I had Joel, I had Joel, Luka, and then Tatum.
Dude,
That's
these
probably
picks,
like 2 through 4 right now.
nah,
Not bad,
picks
not bad.
stink, bro.
My depoy. Rudy Gobert was my depoy.
My depoy was Ben Simmons.
That is very true.
Ben Simmons was my third. He was my third. No Jaren Jackson in sight because of injury. Robert Williams not in sight because of injury. Rookie of the year was Paolo, though. I'll take that. I
picked the wrong guy, bro. I put Rob Williams as second on my depoy list because I'm like, the injury's not going to affect him that much. And it was Jaren that the injury did not affect him that much. I took a dub
Halliburton.
though. My second for rookie of the year was Keegan Murray, and he's probably not top 2, but
Me
he's
too.
like top 3 or 4.
Maybe
Yeah,
4.
there's a lot of competition for like 3 downwards through from there, but
Jordan
yeah.
Poole's my 6th man of the year. It's probably Brogdon or Portis now.
Yeah, I would imagine that's probably going to be Brogdon's award.
Yeah.
I mean, Poole has started too many games to qualify, so I'll give myself this. Of the 3 guys I predicted, the one who hasn't started enough games to still qualify is probably going to win it, so I'll take that.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Halliburton's
Paolo-
my MIP, but I don't think he should win it. Personally.
Yeah.
My MIP list did have Jalen Brunson on there.
Me
Kevin
too.
Johnson was second, and Tyrese Maxey was my number 1. Which
I had Hallie, Wendell, Brunson in that order.
Yeah.
my 6th man of the year, putting Westbrook as second on my 6th man of the year predictions was such a dub, but now he's starting on the Clippers.
Yeah, that was a really good pick. I had Laurie at number 3 on my most improved, so I'll take
Good
that.
pull.
But
Great pull.
my coach of the years were outrageous, and
I had Joe Mazzulla as my second.
I had Bickerstaff, Finch, and Willie Green. So I ain't got no one who's in contention there. Although Bickerstaff's done well, but he ain't gonna win it.
I had
And
Finch.
Depoy's pretty much a write-off too. Bam is kind of there, but Rudy was my winner, and that's not looking good. So
We damn near had the same award predictions, dude.
yeah.
You know,
we do be
Michael
having a bit of
Malone-
a habit of that.
Facts.
Michael
Both had
Malone made
Embiid,
my
Rudy,
list,
Finch,
man.
Both had Paolo, I think.
Paolo. At least Paolo's
I had-
gonna win his award.
Yeah,
I
I had
guess.
Wendell at 1 for MIP. You had him at 2. I don't know what's up with their MIP picks always being similar, but it's the most
Facts.
random award to ever have be similar. But
I guess I'm just the casual with the crazy takes, man. What can I say? Some of them are Russell Westbrook for 6th man of the year, and some of them are Ben Simmons for defensive player of the year. We'll just say that.
you're
That's
talking
good, 'cause-
you're talking to the guy who put James Harden and CJ McCollum over Donovan Mitchell on a shooting guard list this summer. So
A little crazy.
Okay.
A little crazy. But it's okay. Did you make the West? Because we did awards before the season started. So
yeah,
Gabe just knew. You just knew that Westbrook wasn't starting.
yeah, he was
Profit.
just going off
Yeah.
of that like initial report a day or two before we recorded it. That was
Profit,
like
man.
maybe he's gonna come off the bench.
Now, because I thought about it, and I'm like, dude, he would be so good because he is the classic archetype of a player with a number 1 option skill set without number 1 option talent at this stage. And so I'm like, yeah, he can just be the number 1 of the bench. And it worked. I mean, enough for them to be like an 11, 12 seed, but it worked for him.
Bradley Beal might drop off of my top 10 list next season.
Yeah, he's gonna be on drop off watch for sure.
Are we
Sure.
Bradley Beal's biggest haters?
I don't feel like Bradley Beal has a lot of fans right now.
Yeah. I don't hate
To be
Beal.
honest, I got nothing
Washington,
against
you know.
him, but like, I'm also not watching Wizards fans and sitting on the edge of my seat to watch Beal play.
He's guilty by association.
Yeah, if he was in a different situation, he'd be different. But it's tough with him in Washington right now. It's tough to get excited about a lot of things in Washington right now. But yeah, he might stay on the list just because of the lack of talent at the position. But
Yeah, maybe.
he's definitely not going to be high up on the list. That's for sure.
If we move Ant to a shooting guard,
I'm pretty sure Ant's being considered a shooting guard. Let me confirm, but
he's in jeopardy.
yeah.
Is DeJounte Murray better than Bradley Beal? Because he's joining the shooting
Yes.
guards list as well.
100%.
He was already on it last year.
Yeah, Anthony Edwards is a shooting
Oh, he
guard.
was?
Yeah,
According to
Anthony
these,
Edwards
man.
is a shooting guard. DeJounte Murray is a shooting guard.
Oh,
Zach
yeah, he
LaVine's
was
a
on the
shooting
list.
guard. Tyrese Maxey's a shooting guard.
It's because I made my list in order, and I put DeJounte Murray as an honorable mention on my point guard list because he wasn't playing point guard anymore.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. We're probably going to see some guys drop off of the point guard list too. I mean, there's a long list of names that are going to have to be looked at for that one this year. So
maybe on the bottom 5. It's like looking at my list. It's like Curry is still going to be obviously on the list. Luka's going to be obviously on the list. Ja, Dame, like those are my top 4. I think Trey is still easily a top 10 point
Chris
guard.
Paul, for me, LaMelo, and that's really the only names that are guaranteed drop-offs. Drew Holiday's going to be fringe.
yeah. But
Right, Kyrie's on my list. I think Kyrie's still on the list.
Yeah, that's the tough thing though. Is like there's so many guys that have had better years. Like SGA's got to fly up, Fox has got to fly up, Brunson's had such a good year, Halliburton's had such a good year. I think there's some guys that you got to juggle in there.
I didn't even have recent honorable mentions, so yeah, he got to juggle.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is like you might not want to drop many guys, but then it's like who are you actually leaving out? So there's a lot of like all-star caliber guys that are missing that list.
It's like Drew Holiday was 7 on my list last year, and he might be at risk. But like another guy like Darius Garland might not be on my top 10 list next year, man. Because De'Aaron Fox probably has to stay on the list. Shea was not on my list last year, so like
is that crazy? I don't think
if he takes Chris Paul's spot, then it's like. You assume Drew Holiday probably stays on the list because bro was an all-star this year and he still defends at a high level on like the best team in the league.
All-star.
So it's like, but it's like, then if Tyrese Halliburton's on that list, DG would probably be the next guy to go.
Yeah, I mean, let's put it this way. This is obviously a very tentative list, so I don't care if I'm leaking because it's going to change a lot from the summer. But my very, very tentative list has LaMelo, Garland, Brunson, Halliburton, and CP all not on the list.
Which is crazy, but it's like, dang, it's possible.
Yeah.
Possible. Yeah.
It's going to be tough.
That's summertime's problem.
That is summertime's problem. And then we're going to have to figure out whether Tobias Harris gets on the list again next year or not.
Hey, I'm praying, man. Fingers crossed we get to include Tobias Harris in all-season basketball talks, man.
That was so funny going to the power forward list, and it's like, hey, Tobias Harris is probably going to end up on somebody's list. I think he was on everybody's list.
Was he on all of our lists, or did you not have him, Gabe?
He was on my list at 10. He just barely made
it. 10. He wasn't on mine.
Man,
he was my 11th. You guys had him at 10. I had John Collins at 10.
Okay.
Because I was the only guy who had John Collins and Julius Randle.
Mount Rushmore, John Collins.
I can't believe he was on my top 10.
Power forward actually shouldn't be as bad this year. The 9 and 10 should be interesting, but
let's hope.
I would assume the top 8 in some order will be Giannis, AD, Zion, Siakam, Jaren, Randall, Markkanen, and Porzingis. So that's only 2 guys that you got to decide from between Draymond, Horford, Barnes, Mobley, John Collins, Aaron Gordon, Kuzma, Jeremy Grant, Tobias Harris, Paolo. So it's not too bad. I feel like it's better than last year.
Oh, yeah. A lot better.
Yeah, bottom of centers was a little weak.
Don't go calling Wendell weak now. Come on.
Bottom of my centers list was Christian Wood and Jonas Valanciunas.
I think mine was
that's still probably stronger than the bottom of my power forward list.
Yeah, you did have Vooch at number 10. You had Vooch at 10, Robert Williams at 9, DA at 8. And mine was what? Side JV at 10, Wendell at 9, and then Robert Williams at 8. Yeah. I had Vooch at 11.
Fair.
I had Christian Wood on my list, man.
That's
and
nice.
he was proving me right for a little bit, bro. He was
for like 3 games.
Hey, man.
Nah. Christian Wood cannot be a top 10 center. His offensive production ain't enough for his 0 defense.
His cancer-like defense.
I don't know if it's that bad, but I didn't want to disrespect him that much, but
I just wanted to bring up Enes Cancer, man. Funny guy.
yeah, that's one way to describe him.
Yeah, I feel like people were saying like,
bro, all you had to do was learn how to guard a PNR.
Literally,
hey,
though.
man.
Literally.
People said they were gonna throw 75 pick and rolls at the Nuggets in the playoffs and watch Jokic turn into Enes Cancer. I'm like, bro, that's a dirty agenda.
You know how demoralizing it would be as a big just to know, like, every possession they're calling your man up to set the screen. And there ain't shit that you could do about it.
Hey, that's why Steven Silas took Sengun out, bro. He couldn't guard the pick and roll.
And people were mad about that. Like, bro, I feel so bad for Steven, bro, because when he got there, it was supposed to be James Harden, they tried to revamp that team. Christian Wood, they tried to revamp that team, trying to still be competitive. And then who knew James Harden was going to want out? And now Steven Silas.
Everyone.
Not really. It kind of
he has out 5 games into the season, bro. Come on.
But not when Steven Silas got the job. He was assuming James Harden was going to be there. Everybody thought James Harden was going to be there. He didn't take that job knowing that he was going to be coaching the fucking AAU All-Stars, which is what he's been coaching.
Literally. That team only looks like an actual team NBA offense when Sengun is running it and Jalen Green and KPJ are both out. And that's it.
Hey, man, I heard Seattle's looking for an NBA team, man.
You got to stop with this relocation. We need to be advocating for expansion. We're advocating for the wrong thing here.
That and purgatory. Those are Gabe's favorite things to say.
Hey, it's the teams in purgatory that need. Oh, it's been 2.5 hours. I ain't mentioned the word purgatory once. But sometimes Seattle do need a team. Seattle do need a team, bro. I'm telling you.
They're not moving Houston. They just need to move some people out of that franchise.
Yeah, for sure. No, honestly, though, I do think, like, I saw it because people were talking about it after, like, Dame's 70-point game. They're like, yeah, all these teams may just be too talented. We may just actually need expansion to, like, at least dilute this talent a little bit.
Yeah.
Especially because, like, low-key, like, there's, like, 25 solid teams in the league. Because, like, the Pacers are bad, but it's, like, they were good before the injuries. And nobody else is, like, egregiously bad. Like, the Bulls are, like, pretty bad, but, I mean, they're, like, okay. Same with the Wizards. And then, like, everybody in the West 1 through 13 is, like, at least, like, solid. There are really only, like, 5 teams that are, like, bad.
5 teams that are actually, like, tanking, like, supremely tanking.
Right, and at this point, the Magic aren't even too far behind the Pacers because of how much they've slid.
Yeah,
right.
I wouldn't even fully consider them a tanking team at this point.
There's like, yeah,
not like they're just not quite as good as the rest of the pack, but I mean they are only 3.5 games out of the play-in.
Yeah,
there's 4 teams there.
Yeah,
there's 4 teams that are poverty.
Yeah, I would consider the Magic a lot closer to the Bulls than I would the Hornets or the Pistons.
I agree.
Too bad the Hornets were actually looking up for a second. I mean, if LaMelo was playing, the Hornets would probably be a little bit better too.
The only thing, like Dev kind of mentioned before you joined Gabe, like at least now they can probably like super tank and maybe get lucky and get Vic.
Thing is, they got like 20 games left, and like the Spurs and the Rockets don't win.
It's possible, man. You never know.
They're like 5 games ahead of like
Malachi Branham can get you a game. Keldon Johnson can get you a game.
They're 4.5 games ahead of the Pistons, who themselves are better than the Spurs and Rockets.
Killian Hayes can get you a game.
Here's the thing, bro. Here's
RJ Hampton. He can get you a game.
They were
okay, settle down.
they were on that. They were on that. He can get you a game until they just went on this 5-game win streak. If they just kept losing, they'd be right there with them. But like the last time the Spurs won a game, was like January. It was January 17th.
Hey, my birthday. Shout out to the Spurs, man.
That's the last time the Spurs won was on January 17th. It's going to be March in 23 hours, and they're still not the 15th seed.
Hey, man, Pop is playing chess, man. He knows what he's doing.
And they're still not the
Vic.
15th seed.
He about to get Vic. Vic's going to be the next Tim Duncan.
I mean, look, these guys are chilling now because they got 5, 6, or 7 game cushions on Charlotte. And as long as they're a bottom 3 seed, it doesn't matter. So they're just, they've pretty much got it on lock. Unless one of them really figure out how to play basketball. But Charlotte's probably going to be the 4, and those 3 are probably going to have the top odds.
Well, Spurs going to come down the stretch late March into April. They're going to beat the Bucks. They're going to beat the Celtics. They're going to beat the Warriors, Kings, Suns. This is going to beat everybody right at the end. Like, we secured the top 3 odds for the number 1 pick. Like, Pop got one more in him.
Yeah, but that involves Detroit winning, like, or I guess, yeah, never mind. But yeah, I don't know, man.
Yeah.
I don't know. Even still, they'd probably have to win like another 8 or 9 games to probably get out of the top 3 or the bottom 3. They'd nearly have to go 500.
What's crazy is the gap. Listen, the gap.
Odds on that are crazy.
The Spurs and the Rockets are so bad that the gap between the Thunder and Spurs is larger than the gap between the Thunder and the 1 seed.
Yeah.
The Thunder are closer to the Spurs. Or no, the Thunder are closer to like a team 12 seeds higher than them. They're closer to record-wise than the 1 seed below them.
That's nasty.
Yeah, it is outrageous.
Sometimes. Yeah, that's sick.
I'm just saying, this is the first time I used Tankathon all year, and the Bulls somehow got first OV. So I don't know what. Actually, this whole lottery is wild though. This has the Bulls at 1, the Hornets at 2, and the Pacers at 3, with the Magic at 4. So none of the top 3 odds were even top 4, which is outrageous. That might be the most wild draft lottery if that ever happens. Houston goes to 5, the Spurs to 6, and the Pistons to 7. That'd be outrageous. There's no shot. That's a wild Tankathon.
I just ran a Tankathon, and dang, San Antonio got fleeced again. Indiana rose up to number 1 with Orlando at 2, Houston 3, and Washington 4.
No, don't go giving Washington a top 4 pick. Come on now.
They're going to draft.
And I already don't like Washington, and I'm sorry, Washington fans, but you guys don't deserve to move up in the draft that much to get a top 4 pick. There's no shot.
They're going to draft Drew Timmy or Oscar Sheboy. Like, these guys are ready to win.
Man,
Orlando won my Tankathon big, bro, because the Bulls fell to 8 and Orlando got their pick.
Man, if Orlando get a top 2 pick, I might just have to convert at that point. I might just be a full-fledged Magic fan.
Scoop, kill.
Is Raptors fandom
with Franz and Paolo? Oh
gosh.
Is Raptors fandom dead on 3-Point Weekly?
Tune in next week.
Hey man, Raptors videos do decent, man. So
shout out to the Raptors, man.
Raptors fans.
You know, we didn't talk about them much today. Didn't talk about them much.
You know why? It's because they're not a contender.
Nick Nurse be running this guy like they're contenders, though.
Hey.
Yeah, you're not wrong. We were liking the 4-game winning streak, but the freshest memory is getting smoked by the Cavs. So we can wait till they're on a winning streak again, then we'll bring them up.
We ain't talk much about any of our personal teams this episode, man. There wasn't really that much Celtics talk, all things considered. On this episode, it was
each other like, come on, yeah. They're contenders.
Hey, bro, because when you got the coach who stepped up, not the step coach,
stepfather,
you are in a good spot, man. Joe Mazzulla, he is basketball's Bill Belichick in terms of like just mood and just embodying the Boston area. Like that's Boston's coach. Like I know, like I feel like Brad Stevens used to have quotes of like, "Yeah, man, I'll turn into a masshole. I get dunking all the time and stuff like that." Nah, bro. Boston, Joe Mazzulla is you.
Yeah, Brad was just, very cool demeanor guy. Like, you can't really tell if Brad is like frustrated or worried or if he's confident because he's just like, chill white dude. Like he's a chill ex-college head coach. Like that's all he is. And Joe's kind of a similar way. Like he doesn't get too high, he doesn't get too low. And I like that. I think Ime was kind of similar too. Just had off-court issues, but
Ime was mad horny, is what he was. Hey, hey. I heard some people on Timberwolves Twitter calling for them to give Ime a call. They're not too happy with.
They said Ime and then bring back Rosas, who had the same issue going on, and I forgot all about that. Like, dude, nah, they don't need that, man. They don't need that.
Dude, Timberwolves Twitter is hilarious. I saw tweets that were like, "This is the lowest I ever felt as a Wolves fan." Like,
like there's no shot.
5 years ago, you were on a 15-year no playoff streak.
My favorite follows are my Timberwolves friends, man. They are the funniest people, bro.
They do be really funny follows, but it's like, man, you guys are one game under 500, and there's been some tough times as Timberwolves fans. Like, I understand it's below expectations. I was there on the 1 seed bandwagon, but man, I don't know if we can be that disappointed compared to previous years over the last decade.
I would hate to be them, though, because it's like you traded all that for Rudy Gobert, and then as soon as you make that trade, Cat's out like the whole year. Gobert doesn't play up to expectations. Now all of a sudden you see Jared Vanderbilt's stat lines getting posted every day by StatMuse and all these pages. You see like all this love for like everybody they traded away, and they're just like,
I'll be honest, as much as I like to be keeping things in perspective as an outside fan, if I was a Timberwolves fan, I'd be sick at that Rudy Gobert trade. I'd be so sick. Like, I wouldn't have completely not liked it the summer, although I probably wouldn't have liked it. But, I'd be sick right now looking at that Gobert trade and just seeing the picks. Seeing the guys you got rid of, nah, no shot. I'd be sick right now. I'd be sick knowing that's what we gave away our future for. A guy who probably isn't on the team in 2 years. Nah.
And y'all called them though, and y'all called them the 1 seed, man. Don't forget.
Hey, man, you said Philly was the 1 seed.
I was expecting Rudy to still be a depoy, but
yeah, at least
clearly I was wrong.
Contender, man. At least my 1 seed was a contender.
Oh, sorry, I'm wrong. Rudy's under contract for 3 more years, so I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. But you'll have him for 3 more years.
5 years ago,
and then he's on a player option. He's got 2 more years and then a player option after this year, and there's no way he's opting out of that player option. So,
oh no,
that man is getting paid $46.65 million that year, and he is eating all of that money.
Is that a worse contract than Chandler Parsons? I don't know.
I don't know. That Chandler Parsons contract is legendary.
And what makes it even more despicable, this man be talking like he was the man. Like, you had a couple good years, but dude, shut up.
Literally. And like his good years were like, I was a good 3-point shooter who could hit the odd shot when I got chased off the 3-point line and played some okay defense. I was like a valuable role player on the wing who gets $15 million a year in today's NBA, not back then. And then he got money and then was terrible.
Worst off season of all time, bro.
That off season.
Was he that off season or was he before?
He was 2016 because that was with the big.
He was the 2016 off.
That was the big cap explosion that the Warriors used to get Kevin Durant, and everybody else just signed like. Was that the same offseason that the Raptors gave Bismack Biyombo a big contract?
No, we didn't give him the big contract. We gave him a small deal, and then Orlando gave him the money.
Orlando
gave him 4 years, 72 after our playoff run with him when he was so good against the Cavs. He got paid 70. He got paid $72 million because of a series, as did Jan Mahimi. He also got 4 years, 72 mil, which
Shout
was
out
even
Jan
worse.
Mahimi,
They both
man.
got 4 years, 72 mil, which for
Where did he go to
backup
college to?
centers
No, I'm just
was
playing.
outrageous. Like, oh man.
Hey, and then same offseason, Timothy Mozgov got that
Yep.
big contract from the Lakers. Terrible.
Luol
contract.
Deng.
Dang
Oh,
got
dang,
his.
Lakers, terrible
Joakim Noah
contract.
got his to the Knicks. Courtney Lee got his to the Knicks. Dwight
Shout out
Howard got
Courtney
his
Lee,
deal as
man.
well.
2K legend. Celtics legend Courtney Lee.
The worst offseason of all. That
Evan
offseason
Turner
ruined
got a
it.
bag.
That offseason ruined
Nick
basketball.
Batum got
for
a bag.
years.
Bro, Evan Turner had like a semi-good season with us, and Portland was like, oh my, we need him.
Yeah, I need to still see if I still have the document because I had a document I made up a long time ago about that offseason, but I don't know if I still have it.
Dude,
It's got to be the
Probably
worst.
buried
The worst.
somewhere,
And it came right after the best actual season, one of the best seasons like ever. That offseason, literally, like the cap explosion, every team signed something.
Great offseason.
Crazy.
Yeah,
The 2016 offseason? Terrible.
Kevin
offseason.
Durant went to the Warriors.
It ruined the league for like 3 years.
But storyline-wise, there was a lot of good storylines in the offseason. Kevin Durant, all of these mid players getting big bags. Wasn't that the DeAndre Jordan getting held hostage offseason too?
Yeah, I believe so. I'm going through my list here. I got my full 12-page document out. So Harrison Barnes got his bag to Dallas. Whiteside got his bag of 4 years, 100 mil to Miami, which was outrageous. Jan Mahimi was 4 years, 64. That was also the Ken Bazemore deal of 4 years, 70 million. Alan Crabb also got his money that offseason of 4 years, 75 million.
Is that the Tyler Johnson offseason?
I believe so. We will get there. Ryan Anderson, I forgot about that one too. 4 years, 80 million. It's a stretch 4.
He had a couple good years.
He did, but like 20 mil a year. Chandler Parsons was 4 years, 94 million. Grizzlies. Timothy Mozgov was 4 years at 65 million to the Lakers. Andre Drummond got 5 years, 130 million.
At the time, I guess it was understandable. I guess
It wasn't great, but I also have Andrew Nicholson here. Not that he headlines anything, but he got a 4-year deal in 26 mil, and then
Andrew Nicholson.
he played 28. He played 28 games on that contract and got a 4-year, $26 million deal. He went to the Wizards from Orlando on this deal.
I think he went to Norfolk State. Let me look that up.
What?
And then,
I remember him from college, man.
Dwight got 3 years at 70 mil. John Lure got 4 years at 42.
That John Lure contract was awful.
Infamous.
The Pistons threw out big money to John Lure and Andre Drummond, man. Stan Van Gundy deserved it.
Wait, question. Was Jan Mahimi, did he go to the Wizards?
I believe so, from the Pacers to the Wizards, yeah.
Oh, God, that's nasty. 2K legend, though. He was nasty on 2K.
True. Al Jefferson signed his 3-year, $30 million deal with the Pacers to replace Jan Mahimi.
Old Al Jefferson at that.
Yeah, only played 102 games for him. Courtney Lee was 4 years, 50 mil. Matthew Dellavedova signed a 4-year, 40 mil with the Bucks, which at the time wasn't terrible, but wasn't ideal.
Terrible offseason, bro.
Jeremy Lin signed a 3-year, 36 mil with the Nets and only played 37 games for them.
If you're not a Warriors fan, your favorite team folded that offseason or did nothing. And the teams that did nothing are the ones that then in the future were able to be successful.
We gave Al Horford a bag.
Yeah, that's true. Mirza Teletovic got a 3-year, $30 million deal on health problems. Kept him out, so I can't give them too much blame for that. But
he was good.
That was rough. There's some random dudes just got a lot of money, man. Like Jared Bayless got 3 years, 27 mil. Only played 42 games for the Sixers. Lance Thomas got 4 years, 27 mil. Cole Aldridge, the legends of centers getting traded for seconds at the deadline, got 3 years, 22 million.
Kansas legend Cole Aldridge, man, lottery pick.
2K16 like silver card in my team legend Cole Aldridge, bro.
And Solomon Hill got a 4-year, $52 million deal.
Solomon Hill, the Lakers biggest op.
I'm telling you, That was the worst offseason
It was the worst and the best.
ever.
It was.
If you're
bad.
not a
It's
Warriors
bad,
fan,
but it's like so entertaining. Like looking back on it, like, damn, he got that money.
Yeah, literally though.
best
Like,
offseason had to be like 2018, bro.
Like 16 mil a year? Are you serious?
Yeah, that's wild.
Bro.
2018 NBA offseason got to clear, bro.
Yeah, I had a bunch of stats on this offseason too. I was looking for this document. So I had 22 players who I included in this document that I had. 16 of those players were traded before the end of their contract. 12 of them were either bought out, released, or stopped playing before the end of their contract. And the number of trades involving multiple of these players that signed these bad contracts in the offseason was 6. Evan Turner was swapped for Bazemore. Hassan Whiteside and Myers Leonard were both involved in the Jimmy Butler sign-in trade. Dwight was traded in for Mozgov. Alan Crabb was traded for Andrew Nicholson. And Mozgov was traded to Orlando for Bismack Biyombo. That was wild. The effects from that offseason are absolutely wild. Because the only way you could trade those guys was to trade them for another one of those guys. It's crazy.
What a time to be a mid NBA player. Like, those aren't even like high-end role players. Those are all mid NBA players, man.
Yeah. I mean, those guys are getting paid more then than they would be now.
Maybe that's why Grant Williams is like, why can't I get $20 million?
No doubt.
Oh, God.
Dudes like Seth Curry, way better than any player you just mentioned.
Oh, he would have got like $23 million, bro. Some team would have overpaid a bag for him.
No doubt. No doubt.
Dog, I forgot just how crazy the offseason was, man.
Yeah, that offseason was crazy.
Andrew Nicholson was getting over $10 million a year.
I really need to sit down and make this video at some point. I've had this scripted out since...
Bro.
I've literally had this scripted out since March 10th of last year.
I was about to say, like, I can't believe somebody hasn't done a real in-depth video on that offseason.
Once I'm done with school in mid-April and I'm out working properly for 16 months, that needs to happen. That definitely needs to happen. That's
going to be a banger. That is a banger video. Because, dog, that offseason needs to be studied.
It does need to be studied.
Just because you got money to spend, don't mean you got to spend it.
No doubt. That's why sometimes, just like we talked about with the trade deadline a bit ago, same thing in free agency, spending money is not always the right way to go about it.
It's not.
There was a couple of videos made about it 10 months ago, but nothing since.
Hey, man. That's all more the reason to make the video.
Definitely. Yeah, what a crazy offseason.
Literally the worst they ever did. That's a crazy name that you just said. I think he went to Norfolk State. I'm like, man, what?
It wasn't. I was thinking of Kyle O'Quinn. He went to Norfolk State.
I see.
You got to know this stuff, man. You never know when somebody's going to stop you on the street and just ask you, man. This is the TikTok era, too. Somebody might just stop you on the street and just ask you, like, where did he go to college?
St. Bonaventure, apparently.
Yeah.
Now I know.
All I know is he's Canadian. That's all I need to know.
Shout out to Big Nick, man.
He was a key part of that Canadian national team at one point in time. Things have evolved since then, thankfully.
How about to say Shea is making him look like a...
I don't think he's had any NBA memories that I could think of, but college he was good.
Can't be too harsh on him because he was playing in the first live game I watched. So, I'm not saying he played much, but he was there. He was employed by said Orlando Magic. So.
He was employed.
Was
he a factor? No, but he was there.
He was there.
Dog, what a time, man. I would have just, like, you get to be mid at the game of basketball on the NBA level and get a bag.
Was that his rookie year or year two? No, it couldn't have been his rookie year. I don't remember what year I was down there. I just remember they played the Knicks. I gotta figure this out now.
The craziest thing might be Biyombo getting paid off of one series. That might be the craziest thing from that offseason.
Would that have been it?
Because of a conference final series.
How many minutes did Melo play in this game? No, it couldn't have been that. Melo didn't play that many minutes that game. So he got injured, which was unfortunate.
What was the game that you went to?
It was Orlando against the Knicks. It was around Christmas. I just don't remember what year. Jameer Nelson. Yeah, no, Jameer Nelson at 17, maybe. I didn't think Carmelo played that much in that game, though, but maybe he did by the 24 and a half minutes. I guess he got injured middle of the third. It's possible. That was probably it, 2013.
First game I ever went to was 2005. It was Timberwolves Lakers in Minneapolis. And I barely remember anything.
Yeah, I don't doubt it.
First NBA game I ever went to, man. Toronto Raptors versus Cleveland Cavaliers at the Q.
Wow, you stepped foot in Cleveland?
On this, sadly, man, on December 1st, 2018. And listen, starting lineup: Fred VanVleet, Danny Green, Kawhi Leonard, Pascal Siakam, Serge Ibaka. All the starters got double figures. Kawhi had 34 and 9 rebounds. On the bench, a young OG, DeLon Wright. Valanciunas was still on the roster before the Marc Gasol trade. And then the last player to get minutes in this game, Raptors legend, the king of Raptors bench mob, CJ Miles, my GOAT. And then on the Cleveland side, my first NBA game I ever watched, the Raptors were playing against a starting lineup of George Hill, Colin Sexton, Rodney Hood, Chetty Osman, and Tristan Thompson.
It's pretty
what college
nasty.
did Rodney Hood go to, though? It's actually not hard if you think about it.
It is hard if I think about anyone in college.
He looked like he wore – I don't know why. He looked like he wore green in college, but that's just me.
Nah. It's an easy answer.
Let's see, did he go to North Carolina?
No, you're close though. Very close. Very, very close. Like very close. Like in that region. Yeah.
Must have been NC State.
Nah.
So my Wake Forest, my fault.
No.
That's all the teams in North Carolina. All the ones that matter, at least.
True. Very true. Very true. He was actually on the Duke team that I didn't dislike too much because they had Jabari Parker. I like Jabari Parker in college.
I watched Channing Frye play 3 minutes of basketball live in person.
Arizona legend. Channing
Larry Nance Jr., Alec Burks, Jordan Clarkson. Jordan Clarkson is an NBA player I've seen play live.
Man, you're making me have to go back and look at this game I watched in Orlando, man, because that had to have some nasty names in it. Because those were not some good Orlando and New York teams. Those 2013.
That's like 2012, 13.
It was 2013, yeah. Yeah, Orlando. Where's Orlando at? Yeah, Orlando's bench was a young Victor Oladipo, Mo Harkless, Jason Maxiel, Andrew Nicholson, and Doran Lamb.
Oof.
Glenn Davis played 39 minutes. Now, to be fair, Glenn Davis was balling that night, but Glenn Davis did play 39 minutes next to Nikola Vucevic. Only back in 2013 could those guys both have been on the court together that much. But
hey, man, all I can say is every season I've been to a game in, the Raptors won the title.
True that.
Actually, me too. Because I went during that 2019 season too.
That's just the most random roster. Like, because I went to a game before the Marc Gasol trade, it's like seeing Kawhi Leonard play games in a Raptors jersey with DeLon Wright, Jonas Valanciunas, and CJ Miles. Specifically seeing Kawhi and Jonas Valanciunas on the roster at the same time just feels so strange.
Kind of hate Kawhi. He sat out that game, decided to load manage.
The game I went to, Kyle Lowry decided his back hurt.
Look,
so.
I paid for those tickets. Because my dad's a Kawhi fan. So I got him and me tickets to that game, and Kawhi decided to sit out right before the game. I'm like, all right, Kawhi.
Yeah, that's tough.
You know
That was the only
players-
only unfortunate things about my games in Toronto over the break was Freddie was day-to-day both nights and didn't play. That's the only tough thing, but Gary was out there balling, so it's okay.
It was also the game Vic got hurt, the first major injury. Sad.
Okay, yes, yeah.
Guess who the leading scorers were? They both had 23 points. Pacers, Raptors.
You said in 2018?
2019. It was January 2019.
Leading scorers had to be like DeLon Wright and I don't know. You said February. I don't think he was on the team anymore.
It's January.
Yeah,
He's still there.
DeLon Wright.
The leading one for the Raptors was Serge Ibaka.
That's crazy. That's insane.
What's even crazier, the leading scorer for the Pacers. Thaddeus Young, man. Thaddeus Johnson.
Raptor legend, man.
He had 23, 15, and 3 assists in 33 minutes in the win.
Man, that's crazy.
Wild. Tyrik Evans was on this team?
Yeah, that sounds about right. Man, where's that shooting from Thaddeus Young? This man's shooting 16% from 3 this year. Come on, man. I know you're getting older, but you still should be able to shoot.
Sabonis was coming off the bench. Kyle O'Quinn, Norfolk State legend, was on that team. Corey Joseph was on that team. I do not remember that.
You know we're deep when we get 2 Kyle O'Quinn references in one episode.
You're talking about Kyle O'Quinn, Andrew Nicholson.
I do not remember Tyrik Evans being on this team, man.
Yeah,
that's
that
my
sounds
guy,
about
too.
right.
Who?
Oh
my!
right.
I was at work today, talking. I was talking to the other Gabe, and somehow we started a conversation at work that was about like, what state of matter is ketchup, and somehow it went to like, how do y'all come up with these conversation topics? And bro said, dudes will just sit in a circle and name random NBA players from 10 years ago. And that's really us right now.
Like, that's just, I don't know. It's just a part of life, man. Like, just naming random guys. Like, damn, do y'all remember, dude?
But I still can't figure out what state of matter ketchup is to this day. So
I would say it's a liquid. It's not really solid.
No.
So you drink. So if you had a spoonful of ketchup, are you drinking that ketchup or are you eating that ketchup?
Well, what would you consider like a yogurt? I think that's liquid.
Yeah, I'd say liquid. If
I
had to define it as not aqueous, then I'd say liquid.
I don't know, man. I feel like with liquids, I should not need a utensil to eat it or drink it in that case if it's a liquid.
God, so the first NBA game I ever went to.
But like, yeah. But like if you pour out ketchup, not like smoothly, but I guess no. I don't know.
It will eventually.
I'm trying to overly scientifically think this by my knowledge of engineering over the last 3 years, and it's hurting my brain. I just need to stop.
See, I'm not a science guy, so you know.
I'm trying to over science this. It's not happening.
I'm gonna start asking this question to everybody, man. That's my new Papa random question.
That's actually a good question, but it reminds me of like, is water wet?
Yeah, but water is definitely wet. So like, there's actually
water makes things wet.
That was my opinion until I was told by many a profs when that was going on that water is indeed wet. So they tell me water is wet.
Know.
Yes,
I don't believe that.
So they
because I heard that if water touching something makes water wet, the water is touching other water molecules. So in a practical sense, a body of water is indeed wet because the molecules are all touching each other. But if you did isolate one molecule of H2O, then technically it is not wet.
It's making my head hurt, man.
It's making my head hurt. So the leading scorer for the first NBA game I went to was Kobe Bryant. Shout out to Damian. He had 35.
You seeing Kobe play live is crazy, man.
I wish I like actually remember. Only thing I remember, I think Kobe had like a fast break dunk.
Weren't you like 10 years old, bro? How you not remember?
Bro, this was 2005.
Yeah, weren't you like 10? Dude, he acting like he like. Dude, act like he like 35, bro.
That's insane. Dude, think I'm like 30 years old.
The way you get, bro.
That's wild.
Every time I see this man, he's like, "Oh, I'm getting old, bro. I'm getting old."
I am getting old. That's a true.
What I'd be saying too. I am getting old.
That is a true statement.
It's me and the old men out here, bro. I'm still in the can't legally drink club.
Chris Mim had 15 and 11. That's nasty. Swish Parker 0 for 7, 0 points, 3 assists.
Yeah, right. That was the Aaron Afalo leading scorer game for me. That was his.
I was gonna ask if
All-Star
Aaron.
season.
I was gonna ask if he was on that team because that sounded like around the time.
Yeah, he dropped 26. He had 5 threes. Him and Jameer Nelson just dominated that game.
Kevin Garnett hit a 3 in this game.
Jameer was on triple-double watch, which is wild because he should not be on triple-double watch on a team that had Tobias, Glenn Davis, and Vucevic starting. But
Dude, 2 of the biggest busts of all time played in this game. Kwame Brown and Michael Oluwaseyi.
The Candy Man. Hold up.
Both played kind of big minutes. Well, not really Kwame. He came off the bench. That's nasty. Mark Madsen. Is that Anthony Carter? Yeah, it is. Rashawn McCants. Wow. What a time. What a time. And I've only been to one other NBA game.
So then what school did Aaron Afalo go to?
I don't think I know that one.
See, you got to be ready for when somebody stops you on the street and asks you what
Can
school.
you give me like a? Is it like a Power 5 school?
Yeah.
He's giving Pac-12 vibes.
You're insane.
Pac-12 vibes, man.
You're insane.
Is it Pac-12?
Yes.
I don't think he's a Washington guy.
If you knew his hometown, it'd make it real easy.
You know, it's funny because I feel like I should know because for some reason I went on the Aaron Aflalo deep dive one time. So I should know this, man. Pac-12 school. There's only like 10, 12. Is he a UCLA kid?
Yeah.
He is.
I cannot believe you.
All right. Yeah,
He's from Compton.
It's adding up now. Give me my dubs, man. He still can't stump me.
You are insane. You are insane.
You're gonna have to bring out you're about to have to bring out like Dwight Bikes or some obscure Raptor legend that
Dwight Bikes. I don't know that yet.
He gonna tell me what school CJ Miles went to, man.
I think he was straight out of high school.
Yeah, I think so. That sounds about right for
CJ Miles was not. Wait,
For real?
no. He did. He committed to a college, but he didn't play there.
Yeah,
I was about to say.
Yeah, I thought even I knew that one. I would be really worried.
Kemba
Don't know why that's something I know, but
in this game. Dwight
He was
Bikes. That's funny.
Yeah,
Dwight Bikes.
CJ
He seems
Miles
like
and-
I don't know. I feel like I should know, but I don't.
who was the other guard on that? No, Julian Stone. That was the other guard. Yeah, those are the two of them that were hanging out on the bench all year.
Julian Stone. That's nasty.
Did he play more games for us? Yeah, he did play more games for us than Dwight Bikes. I remember
Dwight
him more.
Bikes went
But,
to Marquette. I would not have known that. 33 years old.
Players.
yeah, Bikes is 33, about to be 34, and Julian Stone is 34. I'm getting old, man. That's
It's
tough.
crazy.
Definitely
Dwight
not
Bikes
getting
went
Julian.
Same age as Curry.
2 active years in the league, like actually playing games.
Same age as Curry and out the league for a grip, man. That's crazy.
It shows you how tough it is to stay in the NBA, bro.
Yeah,
That is
it is
no
really
joke.
tough. Really tough.
And yet
And
some
the
dude
blue.
keep a job, bro. Hey, Michael
That
Carter
blue.
Williams just got a multi-year deal like last week, didn't he?
Yeah, you
Syracuse
got him
legend,
all
man.
year.
Bro, keeps a job.
Man's just a Magic legend.
Magic legend for sure. He's definitely a Magic, even though his best year was
As a Sixer, but he's a Magic, man.
Still not
Yeah,
the best Magic point guard of the
definitely.
2010s, man. That's got to go to DJ Augustine.
He's a lot of teams' best point guards of the 2010s.
I don't know if the Raptors win a title if DJ Augustine doesn't embarrass them to start off the playoffs. That ended
DJ
the,
Augustine.
that ended the Toronto Game 1 curse.
DJ Augustine walked so Jalen Rose could run as far as hairlines go, man.
Oh,
Goated,
man.
man. Goated.
Dang. But do they got a hairline like Paul George?
I would argue DJ Augustine's is actually smoother, man. That man kept a fresh fade. And his waves was always crispy, man. Like it's like he had his brush on the bench with him. It was just
So, hey, bro, it's the Dion mentality, man. If you look good, you feel good. If you feel good, you play good.
if you play good, they pay good. That's how far this episode has gone. Y'all got anything else, man? I gotta get up early.
Yeah, we should probably wrap this up.
Tyrik got a max on bench tomorrow, man.
I do. That's
He needs his rest. He needs
that's
his
midday
rest.
vibes. I gotta be up early for this work event. I'm not even sure what time I gotta be there, but I know it's early.
Fair enough. Well, let's wrap it up then.
Sure.
Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of 3 Point Weekly. Be sure to leave us your thoughts down below in the comments on who you think are the contenders and who are the pretenders for this year's upcoming postseason. If you guys did enjoy the video, then be sure to leave a like down below and subscribe to the channel for more NBA content over the course of the coming weeks as we approach the postseason. And we'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.
Damn, that was 3 hours.